I need a refresh page maybe to see the live thing.
Yeah, I started, so when it's refreshed, then we could ship it out. There we go. Hey, what a sexy thumbnail. There we are.
Wow, look at that.
Oh my god. Sexy never left. Alright, gonna tweet it out. And wait for my 3 fans to come in. Let's see, G-Man.
It's,
Doug Polk.
There's 2 more than I got. Actually, I have 3 fans. It's
You have
Ashley, and my 2 dogs.
What about Russell?
That's true. I got 4 fans.
So, who got you in the divorce, Russell or Kitty? I'm just kidding. Ashley goes with Kitty, right?
That would be Kitty's plan, yeah. I literally think Kitty just put up with me because she loves Ashley.
Oh, she likes you a lot. I don't even know. Oh, there he is. I found Nick Airball's Twitter.
You can't hear any feedback from my speakers,
No,
right?
you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool.
Does anyone come in chat? I'm typing from Twitter.
I'll retweet it.
All right. Did you ship? You sent it out?
What's up?
Did you send it out on your Twitter?
Yeah, you mean I just retweeted it? If that's
Okay.
what you mean?
That's fine. You got like 5,000 more guys than me. Okay, this is an impromptu podcast with Mr. Jesse James. November 9er, what was it, 2012?
Yep.
Co-founder of Floptimal with Russell Thomas. And
Yep.
Who were the other? You had 2 more people, right?
What's that?
You have 2 more co-founders, right?
Sorry, I gotta turn this up. 2 more what?
2 more co-founders at Floptimal.
Yes, Shireen and Tim. Shireen is most famous for, recently most famous for winning the online championship on WSOP.com, and she got a big belt. But really, she's most famous for, she was on Survivor twice. And she had one of the most epic final tribal speeches. If you go to like any list of best final tribal speeches, she absolutely destroyed this one dude.
So is she the best poker survivor performer?
Oh yeah. I would think so. I mean, if you're talking about how late she stayed in the game, I'd have to go look because she was, fairly deep in the first one that she played. She got, I don't know exactly where she got eliminated, but I feel like it was like 6th or 7th. I don't know where John Robert got eliminated, so they might be close.
Well,
if you're talking about like survivor experience and like knowledge, yeah, she's number 1.
Number 1 poker player.
Yeah.
I don't know what Ronnie Barta did, but yeah, man. Okay, well, let's go through your poker history. So you like moneymaker, and then just online grinder, then Black Friday live. Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah. So Moneymaker, I was still in high school, and then I went to college, and I was in school in California, so I could play at these 18 and up casinos in California. And then I realized I could use my debit card to put money online, and then I actually got, I want to say, good at poker. I mean, I still sucked for today's standards, but
I mean,
I got a lot better.
Standards are really high now. I'm fairly insecure in my own abilities.
Yeah, no, we all are. Every day we question it.
Yeah. Well, the dust has settled in the last few years, so we're gonna talk about that. But let's talk about current events. and we caught some, I don't know about stray bullets, but just, our names got dropped in these. What the hell is going on? How did this even start? Like, I know like Nick Airball and Berkey are playing heads up, and Doug fired shots at Berkey, and Nick Airball fired shots at Garrett Adelstein, and Nick Airball went on Garrett or Doug Polk's podcast, and Garrett went on, and like, can you piece
Yeah.
any of this together? It just all happened so quickly, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it like that, but you're right. It did start out with Nick going after Garrett and Doug going after Berkey, and then somehow they crossed lines, and now it's Nick versus Berkey or something.
And then we got dragged in somehow.
Yeah. I know for my thing, like, so me and Russ did like a guest talk for one of Berkey's seminars. He does like these weekend or week long seminars.
Okay.
Um,
So
and
what you're saying
one
is
of
he is busy because he was
Berkey.
because he was getting ripped on for, oh, I'm too busy, I gotta
Yeah, in my experience with Berkey, he's a very, very busy guy. He works really hard on
I
a lot of
agree.
stuff. I mean, I also see him when he's working, so that's something. But like, I don't know, I'm not like his closest friend. I don't see his day to day, but it seems like he's working a lot.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he works really hard, obviously, for the Solver Wide stuff, the podcast, and then he flies the live of the bike from time to time, and just, yeah, he puts in stuff. So he definitely has a lot of stuff to do, and he's getting called out for being like too busy to, when he said, I'll play you every day for blah 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 and blah blah blah. So
I mean, I get where he's coming from. It's like Doug's like, why won't you play? And like, why won't you come out to Texas and play? And he's like, dude, you just called me a scammer. Like, why would I promote your stream?
yeah,
And I completely get where he's coming from with that. And like, and then it just became a thing where it was like, I think he just felt goaded into this heads up match. And he was like, look, I'll play heads up. And I said, I'll play heads up, but I'm not gonna like jump through hoops to do it. And I completely get that side of it for sure.
I guess chronological order, with these recent events, Doug gets Nick Airball on. Do you even like what was the catalyst? It's just calling
I don't
out.
know. Actually, that's a good. Didn't Nick Airball have some sort of like tweet that set the whole thing off? And
Well, yeah, I guess Garrett said that Nick Airball is a bad person. F that guy, and
oh
then
yeah,
and then that set off, Nick Airball going on the podcast and just saying stuff, and yeah, then he apparently, when interviewed, he's not the character that he plays on the poker shows.
yeah. It's interesting. I've kind of like zoned out of that side of it because it feels like people have come out of the woodwork and said that they're close to Nick and that he's a really good dude. And I know people who know Garrett pretty well and they speak really highly of him. And so I'm just kind of like, at this point, I'm done trying to find evidence of the contrary about either. I don't know. I feel like worn out.
Yeah,
But
I mean, a lot of it is a lot of it's just like everyone's a different person. Everyone is different. Like we talked about last time, everyone has different goals in poker. Like right now, I feel like Nick Airball wants to be a poker stream star, a poker character, which he's clearly succeeded in doing. But Garrett
yeah,
is like, he's covering like all the bases. He's like, I don't like I read Garrett's 2+2 post way before I met him. I don't remember what they were, but they were, back dating
hmm
2004, 5, 6. I don't know. That was
yeah. I
when,
used to read those as well back in the day.
yeah. So just like for people to attack him after he's contributed so much to poker, it's it's hurtful for because like I didn't have a personal relation with him even then. So he was posting on 2+2. Then I think he was a coach for Deuces Cracked and then Run It Once. And I'm not like following him religiously or whatever, but when I see his name, as with many other names, like I'm just gonna have a general idea of what they did. And then Black Friday happened, which was bad for all of us, and not all of us can finish second in the World Series main like you. But
You could do it, man. If you put out your dream board and you think hard enough, I
if
feel
I
like
actually play the main, which
You got to do that. You have to play the main to get second in it. That's
So
an important part of it.
I have like an over 20-year career. I have 2.5 million hands online. I think I'm up on every single site that I've played on. I'm down in PLO net, but I'm up on every site that I've played on. I did the best on Hollywood Poker. I will reveal my poker screen names like one by one periodically. On Party Poker, it was Jack Bauer, except the E was a 3. And all my names, almost all my online names up until Black Friday, the E was the number 3. So if people go back, they could kind of deduce who I might be.
Hmm.
I was definitely up on Full Tilt Stars, but I played all the games until I don't prefer No Limit Hold'em, but obviously like now it's just the No Limit Hold'em is the most games, and after Black Friday I was on the Cake Network, and this is a hand where if the guy's still out there, he's definitely gonna remember this hand. So it's 10-20 No Limit, 2KNL as the cool kids might call it. I had Queen 10 of Diamonds. I flopped a Royal. And then it goes running Queen 10. So the board's a straight. And I think we had like 325 bigs. And then, of course, I ripped it on the river. And he called me and saw the bad news.
Wait, what do you have?
He played the board.
Wow.
I don't think he had a flush.
Wow.
Because he wouldn't have tanked that long. So whoever that was, that person's still out there, and yeah, I know they remember that one. No one's gonna forget that. But yeah, like after the Cake Network, it's like a lot of people with an online background went to Commerce to LA. A lot of people from around the country. Garrett's one of them. I believe he moved from Arizona there. So kind of what unraveled during that time period is a large influx of online players, including myself, just went there. Garrett was a No Limit Hold'em specialist. I played all the games, and things started getting privatizing already a little bit because games would get set down, and you like all 9 people sit down, and if you don't get a starting seat, you're on the board. And you'll be lucky to get in the must move shorthanded, but like a lot of people don't want to play short. Obviously, people with online background love short.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a period where I would put my initials on every single game, and they could change the variables, like change the buy-in amount, and then they start the game, and the existing board doesn't go.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of tricks. Garrett was there almost daily playing 10-20 No Limit. I didn't butt heads with him that often, but it was just very memorable because he would cover the table at that time 30K, 40K, 50K. People called him a fish. And he was just like running over people. And he was younger. Like, he's much more like of a gentleman now. Back then, he was like a total scrapper and just, yeah. And then I don't remember any meaningful hands with them. And because of the online background, obviously he has an online background too. But like, I'm just buying 100 bigs, maybe 200 bigs if the game is good. So I'm just like completely irrelevant in the game. But I saw him do like so many just soul reads and like sick plays, and of course like no one's accuracy is 100%, but he just really liked humiliating people who bought in deep. Like he was incredibly good at sensing like, okay, you bought in that deep, are you really willing to lose all that money?
It's really funny you say that, because the one thing that stood out to me about him when I watch streams that he's on that I feel like it's kind of unique to him, like not a lot of people have this aspect, is he looks incredibly comfortable super deep.
Yeah.
and like everyone, almost everyone is uncomfortable at some depth, I think. I mean, that's like my perception. Obviously there might be plenty of people out there aren't, and I just don't know about it. But
Sure, yeah.
especially when you like move up and like you have these games on stream, right, that you'll never get access to otherwise, maybe, or maybe he does, I don't know, but you're playing like 500 1K and you're like 600 big blinds deep and he's making thin calls or thin value bets or whatever, and it's like that's very nerve-wracking, and a lot of people just stop getting so thin in certain spots or stop like trying to like induce in certain places because it's like really high variance. And he does seem very comfortable with that, and I always thought it was just a just like a disassociation from the money and the blinds and just saying like here's the best play. But it makes a lot of sense that he spent years kind of
Yeah.
conditioning himself to be good at that.
He's got so much practice and he loves the psychological aspect of the game, which is like, you know, from an online background, usually you're going for the theory and just, you know, how you're gonna pan out after X hands. Whereas like live, you have a more finite amount of time. Something I think the public overlooks is tactics. Like when you first jump into high stakes and you're up against a bunch of regs, like they know tricks, they know, you know, things that if you haven't experienced them, you're gonna get punked. Like,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's ethical or, you know, borderline angle shooting. So that was kind of my experience. And like, you know, Kelly Minkin mentioned, like we were just reminiscing that Garrett was like a young scrapper and now he's like, you know, kind of a gentleman now. And just like you said,
Yeah.
kind of the poster child, like you know, super fit, like articulate, and just yeah, it just and clearly I think it's his no limit hold'em journey is underrated, in my opinion, because people see the A to Z and see him on stream. Like he was winning off stream. Like I get approached by young white kids all the time that say they want to be Garrett. I'm just like, oh god. You realize you don't realize he's been winning like live and online for 15 years before he even set foot on stream, and he was pre-selected for an actual TV show, Survivor, in which there's JRB, Garrett, Ronnie Barda, and your co-founder, forgot her name. Shireen.
It's actually, I don't think she played any poker when she was on the show.
Oh,
So she's kind of like a hybrid. She's like the one person. Well, I guess a lot of Survivor players got into poker after, like Boston Rob plays poker, for instance, now, but I don't think he played too much when he was on the show.
so in that era too, like I played shorthanded and heads up against DJF, aka Billy McMahon. He's too cool to follow me on Twitter now. He's a superstar. No, in all seriousness, it's you know, the community, we all knew each other, and I didn't know Garrett personally. I didn't even know, you know, Billy personally then, but it's like, you know, we just were around the area. And for No Limit Hold'em, like when it gets down to shorthanded with like, you know, Garrett, Andy, Brian, Kim, Neil, whoever else was active, I'm just like, yeah, peace out.
Yeah.
You guys go have fun.
I mean, it takes. This is something that I've realized over the years because I've met a lot of people who they're very smart people and they grasp poker theory very quickly. Or I play with people who are really successful in their own area of business or whatever they do, trading, and they've made a ton of money and they really like poker, but they don't study it. I guess that's not a good example, but basically, like, there's a ton of smart people in the world, but there's not a huge crossover of people who are incredibly smart and also have really high risk tolerance. And that's like, like that made me realize that like that's the thing that allowed me to do well at poker. I'm not saying that you're not that guy. I'm just saying like, it's interesting. We all have like our level where like, okay, this is enough risk tolerance, right? For some people, it's maybe their first $1,000 pot that they lose, like, all right, that made me a little sick. Some people it's like the first 100,000, some people it's the first $1 million swing or whatever. But we all have some level where
It's
you
enough.
know we realize what we could have done with that money,
Yeah.
and that was like the thing that we weren't willing to give up.
Yeah, and when you're younger, you just have more risk tolerance, and when you get older, there's more responsibilities. You know, like I think Garrett mentioned one time he went broke, and then never again. Same thing. Like I went broke, and I was like never again. So, you know, in the time that I was broke, I would have these thoughts. I'm like, all I had to do was play tight. Like, you know, just not. It's kind of the answer. Well, you know what it is. It's just like I just didn't have to have my ego involved. I didn't have to,
Yeah,
you know, like battle. I didn't have to see who's quote quote better.
that's something I admired about Garrett. I have my thoughts on Garrett or whatever, and whether like I have different varying thoughts on Garrett. But one thing I always admired about him was he eventually played in big games where he did just need to play tight, and he didn't just play tight, and like for good reasons. Like he made additional money, I think, not being tight. But
Yeah, I mean, part of it's like how, like knowing how your opponents are gonna to play against you. I mean, they're gonna like every opponent can play all of us differently, which is why all these 2+2 and Reddit hands are so worthless in a vacuum. Like, oh, this is my hand and this is the hand. Like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. We weren't there. We don't know what you look like. We don't know what the other guy thinks of you. Like, it's very
yep,
important to know
yeah,
what or have a good guess of what the other guy thinks of you.
yeah. I mean, I literally have friends who just get called nonstop. I used to get called nonstop too, actually. So
Jealous?
at some point, people thought I got tight because I got a lot of folds.
No, I mean, just you know, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Garrett got attacked by Nick Airball a lot, and one thing and you know, shout out to Doug Polk and Garrett for saying nice things about me. And one of the things is being, you know, the other game runner in LA. You know, I've dealt with Garrett a lot, and when Nick Airball said that Garrett didn't trust me, it's like, you know, you could put a magnifying glass on when things go a little off, but then when 99% of the time things are fine, it it's fine. But yeah, like you know, it there's only up to 9 seats in the game, and the game needs to go.
Yeah.
And that's a responsibility that, you know, in LA, Ryan Feldman and I have, which is we can't wait because if the game doesn't go, there's no show and there's no product, and the staff shows up for nothing.
Man, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. This is a concept that not many people get, and I didn't get until like pretty recently. Um, I think that people think that your guys' job is not nearly as hard as it is, and you guys have an incredibly difficult job because you're essentially trying to round up poker players and gamblers, and that's incredible. Like getting them all to agree to meet up at a time and actually like execute on that. And then you've got well, who's in the game? Well, did the game change? Well, is it going to be bigger? I'm out. Um,
One person
I
drops
like
out, then the next, and then it's over. Like
Yeah,
there's no game.
exactly. And I'm not just saying that like to cater to you because I'm talking to you. I've literally said this to like so Jamie's been running the WPT cash games when they do them around
Jamie
tournaments.
Kerstetter, yeah.
Yeah, and like I had this conversation with her a few months ago. I was like, it's such a thankless job. Like you guys put up with a lot of bullshit, and like almost nobody thinks your job's near. Like everyone's just like, oh, they have a great easy job. Like everyone loves or everyone's like loving them and sucking up to them because they want to play in the game. And it's like,
The wrong
yeah, it's
people.
not it's not quite that.
Yeah. So part of it is I've been involved with Live at the Bike, I think about 7 years already. Um, the guy who's involved longer is the director, Brian Arakaki, and he's seen people rotate out of this role so many times. In fact, the first time it was offered to me, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. after a month, I'm like, dude, Brian, I can't do this anymore. I quit, man. I quit. I can't. I literally can't take it because people are just bombarding you for seats,
Yeah.
and like you have like as the game runner, you need to know who's the most important one, and just kind of cater to that person, the next, and the next. And Garrett wisely figured out it's a show, and he better be one of the most popular, if not the most popular person on that show, so he gets a seat.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what happened. It's like everyone knew why Garrett was there. He had a seat because when Garrett wasn't on the high stakes show, the viewership dropped significantly. And
Yeah. I think his playing style kind of helped that a lot too, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Isn't that a big factor?
And also being a jack, good looking, articulate white guy, none of that hurts too. Like, it doesn't hurt that a bunch of young white guys wanted to be him.
Sure. Yeah.
And they all dream of just like being lag. Like being tag isn't sexy.
No, it's not. It's honest work, but
Yeah, it's honest work, but it's not sexy.
no, it's not.
So, and also he covered the table. Why Andy's really popular too is because he buys really deep, almost always covers the table. And usually they're the two biggest stacks, and
Yeah.
those stacks move.
Yeah.
So he gets accused of, I guess, Nick Airball and whoever, Art, blah blah blah. They all accuse him of, and Lynn accuse him of blocking them. And it's like the game, like whatever Garrett says, it's up to the game runner to like execute. Because while Garrett drives the viewership, he's not the most important person to get the game going. The person who gets the game going is the recreational players, and they're the most important ones because it's the product or nothing. And like if there's a draw who's not as doesn't draw as much as Garrett, oh well, the game went. Like, do I have huge respect for Garrett's career? Yes. Like he's done it all except the tournament stuff. In which, like, I'm sure when you're an elite cash game player, you're just like, fuck tournaments. You can't make anything off them.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of a matter of, for a lot of people, tournaments they're appealing because you can win huge sums of money for not that big of a buy-in, but
But
he's playing in games where he literally wins. He can win or lose first place in a night. So like, I couldn't imagine. Like for instance, all right. So my usual game that I might go play, at least historically, lately I've been playing weird other games, but it's like I would walk in the Bellagio and play like 10, 20, 40 or whatever, and I buy in for I don't know like 5 to 10K, maybe more depending on my mood or the table or whatever. But usually it's like between 5 and 10K. And my swings on the night are generally like anywhere between like 0 and 15K. Maybe I've had like a minus 20K night a few times, but it's not super high. And then I play tournaments where there's a million up top. If I was to go play tournaments every day where there's 20K up top or 30K, like that's ludicrous. You know what I mean? So like I mean, I didn't even consider him playing tournaments because it's like, yeah, you have access to these games that are
well,
like, why? It would be so boring to me.
just even before, like when I was a pure cash, and I'm still mostly, even though we're gonna see my tournament graph in a bit. I was pure cash because like you just make more, but it's also a dangerous vortex. I mean, live tournaments is just ridiculous. You can't make a living off that. The variance is just too high. But like cash, you can, and the death trap is when you get it over your head, you're playing under rolled, the games start drying up. So that in poker you can only move up stakes, or you could move laterally into different games, or find income other places. But the actual poker play is like really capped.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, like to specify some of Garrett's compromises with the game runners is like, obviously one, like he said, and like he and I talk about, and like the general public may not understand, is the game needs to go. And in order for the game to go, recreational players need to feel like they're either winning or not losing that much in this game. In which these stream games, these private games, are so much better than public games now. It's just insane.
Mm-hmm.
So starting when I was putting the games together. So Ryan Feldman withdrew. I don't really want to comment on that much because I wasn't there. He and I have talked about it in person, and just like, if I'm not there, then leave it be. That's up to the owners at that time. So I started making games more rec heavy under my tenure as the game runner and the co-owner, and that coincided with what Garrett wanted. And to Garrett's defense, that he's setting the lineup, it's like, as a game runner, like Ryan Feldman and I have to, like, we listen to Garrett, of course, but there's no gun to our head. And here's an example of when Garrett says if he set the lineups, they would look differently. The recreational players would rather play with another recreational player, but as we know in No Limit, if your game plan is deep stack poker, you don't want pros or even sometimes Rex just playing 100 BB or 150 BB or 200 BB, because it's a lot easier to play those stacks. And this, even though you could be a favorite against them, you're maybe not winning very much, or even they could use the shorter stack against you because it forces showdown. So in a case where Garrett potentially would rather have a pro like Andy or Jackie because they put so much on the table, he potentially want them over a weak, tight recreational player that plays like 100 BB and just folds like ace jack under the gun or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And the other recreational players would rather have that weak tight player. So that's an example of a compromise that he potentially has to make to get the game going. Because in his ideal lineup, it would just be guys that splash around, and the next would be the guys who buy in deep, that, their stacks are going to move. They're not just like sitting there.
Yeah, I think that's like smart for the long-term portion of like for the longevity of the game anyways, because if you have him and who did you mention? It was
Andy and Jackie.
Jackie, yeah. Andy and Jackie. It's just a more entertaining product. Like you'll have more longevity to the stream. There's more viewership. And eventually that creates more people who want to come on the stream that are because it's like what you said. Like the recreational players are like, I don't want to go in there and just get torched. And No Limit is a game where like if players are way better than you, you get torched. It's not PLO where you can gamble it up. And so like if you have this game where like you guys are playing these huge pots and like, kind of trying to battle each other for these big pots, it's more exciting to watch. And then you have this bigger net of people who might want to come on and play. And also they probably feel a little bit better. Like if these guys are battling with these giant stacks, like if you got three guys who are like the best players in the game or whatever, and they're battling with these giant stacks, that actually increases your edge if you're not better than them, but you have a shorter stack, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of like evens the playing field for them a little bit, which is cool.
So yeah, I mean, just like does he push the straddles? Yes. I mean, that is something that would make the other players more comfortable. But like in the end, it's just like accusing of controlling the lineup is a little bit scapegoatish, because as the game runners, I listen, and what he says, what his ideal setup doesn't cater to like some of the other recreational players. So I have to the recreational players are my bosses. So I listen to them, and it is what it is. They know why Garrett's there. And when people who have a following and are popular, like Maria Ho or Kitty, are there. I'm just like, okay, well, they're in the game. Garrett obviously doesn't want other winning players in the game, but when you get a certain echelon of following, that's where you get your power for these shows. Like, for example, recently, arguably Keating can be more popular than Garrett because he just puts a ton of money on the table and plays like 95% VPIP or whatever. So for the interim, and then Keating won't play with Garrett.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, you just have to make choices.
Yeah, Garrett kind of like basically spelled that out when he talked to Doug too. He said,
I guess because I'm in behind the scenes, like I already knew it. If I didn't know, I suspected.
yeah.
So
No, but he was like cool about it. Like he didn't
yeah,
say,
'cause
"Oh,
it's not
look, I
personal.
got shut out. What are you guys talking about?" He was just like, "Yeah, Keating's a cool guy. I get why people want to play with him over me, and he doesn't want to play with me, which makes sense."
Yeah.
It was pretty. I really like that part of the interview because he's clearly thoughtful about that kind of stuff.
Well, because like in 2000, what, 11, 12, 13, after Black Friday, that it basically happened to us. Like people got shut out, and I was one of them. And then
Mm-hmm.
like I kind of went crazy. I had family issues, and I started playing under rolled. I played games I wasn't as studied in, and that's a recipe to go broke.
Yeah.
So you understand once you go through the shutout process, it of course hurts, but like that's the reality. Like the better you get in this industry, the more you're not allowed to play.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too because it's almost like a bunch of people trying to jockey for who's the most not good while they're actually good or whatever, and
Yeah,
it's
I mean it's happening in the app games, the private games, and just like yeah, and then when you have to select which pros are allowed in just to fill the tables, who's it going to be? The guy who at least plays a lot of hands and bluffs and gives the recreational players an illusion that they're not as screwed as they actually are.
yeah, that's like I think kind of what you're saying is just like you need to give action. And I think that's like extremely reasonable, right? Like the whole point is you're trying it's like golf essentially. It's a weird comparison because golf is a game where there's a lot less variance, but in golf you figure out a person's handicap and it aligns your two skill sets and then you can gamble on it. And it's like we don't really have a way to do that in poker, but the smartest
I
the
mean,
smartest people in terms of getting into games give action to like basically like say like, hey, I'm willing to level the playing field. Um, I remember, I don't know if I should say his name just because
yeah, we'll be. It's
I
rough.
don't know. I don't know if he's wants me to talk about it, but like I know a player who got into a really big PLO game in Vegas that pros don't get into, and he basically just showed up and he was like, "Look, here's what I'm gonna do." He's like, "If it folds to me, I will pot it pre-flop every single time." He was like, "And my only thing is if I have trips or trips or worse, like trips or quads or a Badoogie hand, you have to let me not pot it. I'll show my hand." It's like, but I don't have to pot it. Um,
Badoogie, I mean,
yeah,
I think trips and quads is more reasonable, but Badoogie, I don't know.
I don't quote me on those exact specifics, but
Sure.
like, but basically they were just like, yeah, fine, like you're in, and he played, and they like loved it, and then he just had an open seat because they're like, yeah, this is really fun, and he loved it because he thought he had an edge, and they thought they had an edge, and like, I don't know,
More
I
importantly, he
don't
got in
love
the
the way that
game.
things are going where like if you're like a pro you get shut out, but I do think that there's very creative ways to meet halfway.
So yeah, just touching up on the Garrett thing, like he publicly said he had 1.9 feet on the way out when things were getting privatized and a bunch of robots were entering the no-limit playing field, and just he found an opportunity with the stream, and he things panned out the way that they did, and he's like it's this industry that people can be political over these 9 seats on the stream and people who get shut out to be vocal, because if you go and apply for a job, if there's 5 slots, there's 5 slots. If there's 1 slot, there's 1 slot. And a lot of people get shut out of those things. So people say poker is a sketchy industry, which it is, but all industries are really sketchy. It's just poker's more upfront about it because the cash is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I feel like what you're kind of saying too is like you're just always going to have people that are unhappy,
Yeah.
no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And when you have 9 seats, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah, I mean, just like take applying for college, for example, especially on, being Asian American. Like, there's only so many slots at Harvard, even less because you're Asian American. But it's like, okay, you didn't get it. There's a lot of upset people,
Hmm.
and just it's everywhere. Just in poker, it's more visible
Yeah.
because the people who get shut out, there's a lot of famous players, and if they get shut out in a way that they don't think is fair, then or reasonable, I don't want to say fair, like reasonable, then they're just going to be vocal about it and cite ABCXYZ. And the people who have slots, I don't know, do they think they deserve it, or they worked for it? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either, but I do know that if you're not approaching it from the standpoint of like if you're approaching it from the standpoint of being upset that you weren't invited rather than what do I need to improve upon to receive an invite in the future to get a seat or whatever. Um, if you're not doing that, like you're just losing the battle regardless of what's fair or what the true solution is. Like you just need to have I'm just like very much of the mindset where you need to have the looking forward mindset instead of the dwelling on what's already going on. Um, and that's you could think that something's unfair. I have my thoughts on what's fair and unfair about private games or whatever, but the fact of the matter is like what you think about it isn't going to change it at all. And what you like, you could tweet about it, it's not going to change it. What you really need to do is say, okay, this is the game now, and like, what do I
How
do
do we?
about
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen people with pretty decent followings complain about this kind of stuff, and it's never changed anything. And I've seen people with like a lot of respect in the poker community or a lot of clout, whatever, and it doesn't change anything. Like you just this is the new uh, what's the word paradigm.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I don't. And there's a difference between like following and stream star. Because like Garrett Adelstein's clearly a stream star, and now Marion and Rampage are getting up there too. But somebody who has a big following may not. I can't think of somebody at the top of my head now. But they may not be stream stars.
Um, I mean, he probably would be if he wanted to be, but Galfon's a good example to me. Like Galfon's the man. Everyone respects him. Everyone listens to what he says. He's a top tier player. He's not a stream star by any means, but he's probably a bad example because I think if he wanted to go on streams, he could, and if he wanted to be like one of the most like one of the biggest fan favorites on streams, I bet he would be pretty quickly because that guy seems to do well at everything.
Yeah, but what I mean is just like there's a lot of known poker players, and potentially one's even more famous than Garrett, but Garrett kind of commands like being a stream star. Like when you cut up hands post production, anybody could be a star. You could take both of our best 20 hands and just post production them, and all of a sudden, hey, guess what? We're better than Garrett or whoever, or Linus or Trueteller or Thurits, like whatever. Like I don't even know who the best are now, but it's like if you post production and just like do surgery and make these sick hands, then that's all people see, and that's what they have in the memory. This is what happens with Phil Hellmuth. Like a lot of the most watched Phil Hellmuth hands are him blowing up, either getting sucked out or, you know, maybe playing poorly. But we've all played poorly too. Like if you take our bottom 20 hands, we're just going to be the worst ever.
Man, I commentated that cash game that Helmy played on at the WPC last December. It was like the last day of the WPT series, and it was going to be me and Ashley commentating it, and Ashley got really sick that day, and I was pretty sick with like a cold and stuff and a sore throat, but I was just like, all right, I'm doing it. I already signed up for it. She was like legit not getting out of bed sick, so I was like, all right, I'll do it alone. So I'm in this little booth by myself for like 8 or 9 hours, and I'm just drinking tea to deal with my throat while talking, and and Phil just starts going off for like the fifth hour in a row, but just in the most comical way. And there's like a 3 minute period during this stream where I just lose my shit and I'm just cracking up, like high pitched squealing, and like the chat's laughing at me because they're just like, Jesse's lost his mind. I just think Phil might be one of the most entertaining humans ever.
He is, and just like what I thought of him, you know, he called me out on this. I don't know how he knew or whatever. Like he and I played in normal casino games, like whatever, 10, 15, probably 10ish, a little bit more than 10 years ago. And of course, it's like Phil Hellmuth, so I'm just like, it's special to even play with him off stream because like I'm gonna remember this. So you know, I don't agree with this play, and then when he lost the hand, he's just like he didn't like full on blow up, but it's just like at that point I kind of knew it, just like he 10x's it on camera and he knows what he's doing. And I realized too he's one of the most important figures in poker because whether you agree or and like him or disagree and don't like him, he keeps the ball rolling for poker and he brings in the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like a vanilla elite pro is actually bad for poker because one, he slaughters the field, and two, he's not bringing in the right people.
Yeah.
He's attracting the people who want to be like him and just fleece the field even more.
All right. So with that said, and the ball moving, how do you feel about this heads up match? You excited?
Yeah,
That's a very much ball moving, keep the ball rolling type of.
yeah. Let's go in order. So, you know, Berkey got thrown under the bus by Nick Airball on the Doug Polk podcast, and you know, Garrett defended Berkey, and there's some heads up challenge, and Doug threw Berkey under the bus, in which your and Russell's name popped up in the video.
Yeah.
That was quite a bit of respect, right? That, you know, he was like, oh, we got real coaches. Oh, there's nothing there.
I'm glad it came off that way. It's funny to me because I have like a couple friends over, and we're talking about like, oh God, we heard, like our other friends are in this group chat and they're just like, yeah, this video is pretty brutal. And
Yeah, it was really
we're
brutal.
like, oh God, it's probably some negativity, but I guess we should probably, that like the train wreck that you can't, or the car wreck you
Yeah.
can't look away from.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I guess we should watch it. And then Ashley's like on her phone, like not paying attention, doing her thing. But all of a sudden I hear like him say my name, and I was like,
Oh, you're like,
Ashley like looks
uh-oh.
up, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's really funny. Yeah, I don't know. Russ and I did like a guest, what is it? Like guest talk for them. And I think he just like threw us in that drop down or whatever. And I didn't even like know I was in it. and I think he had like a plan to like put that piece of content in there eventually or something.
I think
But it was just so random. And
I think from Doug's videos side, it was a nice nod that you and Russell actually, you know, are known winners. So it was like it was a side props thing.
yeah. Yeah, I know Russ and Doug like talk a good amount. So when he mentioned Russ's name next to mine, I was like, okay, this is a somewhat respectful thing.
Yeah, that's how it came across when I watched it. But yeah, this is brutal. Like I just, you know, would not want to be in the receiving end of these things.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of interesting because I feel like like I don't know. I don't know if it was one sided or two sided, but I feel like there was some back and forth between Doug and Berkey like 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah, I remember
and then
that.
yeah, and then they like came together on the Mike Postle
Apostle,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, it seemed like they were friendly, and I was like, okay, cool. They did their kumbaya thing, and now it's like 20 times worse. I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. Like literally, what was going on? Doug was just like, I was getting along with Berkey, and oh, I think it was like Berkey was saying stuff about the lodge. I think that was a trigger point.
Oh, he was? That's funny.
Well, that's in the video. That's what Doug said. That he's like, you said the lodge doesn't have this, but we do, we do, we do, we do. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, you Doug's not one to let something like that slide, that's for sure.
yeah, because like what
In
Doug
battle.
was saying, it's like jeopardizing the livelihood of his team. It's like you want to attack him, he's totally for that. Like let's go, but you know, um, well, let's pull up this. So yeah, we'll pull up the Phil Galfond tweet in a bit, but like, this challenge was issued by Nick Airball, and then Berkey's like, I'll gladly take it. Then this arbitration goes on, and people are just like commenting everywhere. And I'm a very busy person too, and people ask me why I don't play heads up. I'm like, you enter this heads up vortex where if you lose, okay, you lose. But if you win, and you're like, okay, I gotta go do work, then they're like, no, man, you gotta take the challenge, my re-challenge.
Yeah.
And you just enter this vortex. Even three-handed can get like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on with this. It's interesting because you have these like classy heads up matches where two guys want to battle it out and it's like pretty reasonable. And then you have like these it can just go a lot of ways with this kind of stuff, right? Like for instance, it seems simple enough. They're going to play heads up, but now there's like certain stipulations getting in there, and it can get really messy if two people don't like each other or if they want to make it difficult on the other person.
It seems like
Uh,
that was kind of the case. Like what I think I'm cool with Ishan. I like the guy a lot. Super nice guy, and he's very understanding, and also from Northern California. What do you think of like him sitting like Nick Airball requesting that Ishan sits behind him?
yeah, but I wouldn't. If I'm Berkey, I would definitely say I'm not allowing that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's just me. I'm not saying like they
Everybody's
were gonna be
different.
up to anything, but I
Yeah.
just be like, no. Like, where's the positive in that for me? Like,
Yeah.
you agreed to play heads up behind closed doors or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be fond of it. I don't know if it would be a deal breaker because it's like if you're calling you're supposed to cater to the fish or whatever or the weaker player. And the line's being set, am I correct in assuming that Berkey is supposedly the favorite? It's like
Yeah,
yeah,
he's like a 2.5 to 1 favorite or something like that. I think. No, sorry, 1.5 to 1 favorite.
that's pretty large for heads up.
Um, you know, I don't want to say too much because I might get some bets down, but but I think I played around with variance calculators and heads up matches a lot to bet on other heads up matches, and
Variance
it's
is quite
like
high.
yeah, it can be quite high, and I think people are underestimating that. Like I'm not. That's not saying that, and like I'm not taking anything away from Berkey. It's just man, there's a lot of variance to this, and
Yeah.
I remember when Galfond was playing. I mean, that's also PLO, which is a crazy game, but
Yeah.
he was playing somebody who was supposed to have a pretty big edge on. I forget who it was,
Was it the
and I
challenge?
like looked up in a calculator. I was like, man, these lines are trash right now.
Is it was it the Galfond challenge or was it something else?
I think it was one of the challenges. I might have also looked at some stuff when Doug was playing Negranu because there were like pretty absurd lines for that. But the lines became like
Reasonable.
all other lines, they get sharp pretty quickly as like money piles in
Yeah.
because there's only so much money that's willing to bet on the wrong side till that bad money dries up.
Yeah, so part of it is like, how much are you supposed to cater to the person who's the underdog? Because if Nick Airball is the perceived underdog,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah, true. That's the thing. I think Berkey's like taking the approach of like I'm not catering at all. I don't care if that I think that Berkey thinks that he has a big edge. Um, I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but I believe that he believes he has a big edge, and I don't think that he cares about it as much as he's like I'm not dealing with a bunch of horse crap. I don't know. That was like my kind of take on it.
yeah. I mean, these are all things that I talk with people in person or I coach, and just like, they're like, why don't you play this person heads up as a good spot? I'm like, because it enters the heads up vortex or the three-handed vortex, and then I have to go to work. You've seen me. I have to be at the bike 9 a.m. 6 days a week. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like yesterday night, because I've been dodging this game, but my friend's been hosting it just for fun. It's an all Chinese game which is like another variable, and I lost like 4 buy-ins. I've never won at this game, even though it's just like people go all in blind or just like just like or I had aces last night. One bad beat story. I had aces. I literally put 60% of my stack in pre. The guy tank calls with 5-6 off, and it's like 9-5-5. What I mean, the game's small. I think the conversions like the buy-ins are like $350 to $400 for like 100 BB. So it's just the total joke of a game. But I lost like 4.5 buy-ins or something like that.
I just want you to know, by the way, that we had 13 viewers, and after you told the bad beat story, we have 10 people watching.
Well, this is just going up so we can answer some of the questions about the characters, because I don't want to talk at the table. It's just people ask me. I'm like,
Oh, no, I don't
yeah,
think it was actually related to that,
I know.
but
It's back up to 12, and
all
um,
right, they're back.
so you, yeah, that's how I viewed it. It's like airballs is kind of like, is like, hey, I'm supposedly the fish, right? So you don't want this action, then. And again, like I'm not gonna say who the favorite is or whatever. Like, the variables can change. Like, if they play 100 bigs or they're playing 500 bigs, like,
Hmm.
it's just like a lot of variables can change things. So
Yeah, I do think that it's interesting because it seems like both of them are at least um, fronting like Berkey's the favorite, right? Whether or not Nick actually believes that secretly, I don't know. Um, but it is interesting because it's almost like Berkey. I think that Berkey really means it when he's like, I'd rather not deal with this horse crap. Like even if I'm a favorite, like
oh, of
I'm
course, yeah.
you could come out here and you could do this. But it's almost like if this was a strategy by him, it's working because now he at first he was like, yeah, you can fly to me and come play me. And Nick was like, okay, I'll do that. And then he's like, yeah, your friend can't play. And Nick's like, okay, my friend won't sit in. And it's like, if this was a strategy by Berkey, like, man, it's going really well.
I don't know. I mean, these guys have all the publicity now, and Garrett's annoyed that his name is being dragged on. Nick's Airball's podcast with Doug is. Garrett's accusing him of just like literally talking about him and not talking about himself, with like a 5 minute break to talk about Berkey. But one of the things that I think at least you and I, as viewers of the poker industry in like the last 20 years, is Garrett's career has been public, and these guys, a lot of people commenting him like don't know that he's been around for like 20 years, and the 2+2, the training sites, and now the streams, and the streams are more digestible forms of content for the average person.
Mhm.
Same
Absolutely.
same with Doug Polk. Like his career is very public. He said he got bashed in the face in small stakes and wanted to quit, and then set out to be the best heads up player. And I think what's a bit unfair to him is that if people refuse to play him, what was the story? Was it like Sauce or something, that he was like saying that no, it's not definitive that Doug's the best player, but Doug was saying, hey, if no one challenges me, that means I'm king of the hill.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was Sauce, but he definitely said that. I mean, it's pretty clear
Whoever said
too.
that, maybe
There's
it wasn't Sauce. I don't know.
well, I don't. I know that on Poker Stars, it became this format where there's only you can only have 10. Everyone can open sit one table in the heads up lobby, and there's only 10 tables, and so it creates this 10 tables can be created maximum per stake. So it creates this very clear pecking order, right? Where it's like these are the 10 guys because the 11th guy won't sit any of these guys. Um, and what happens is like the 11th guy's got to play smaller, or he's got to go off and get better at poker, and then he can challenge someone. Um, and for the 10 guys, they get to kind of just sit and wait for someone to sit them, which is presumably a recreational player or like the 11th guy getting better. Before that happened, like it was a little more mayhem, but it was kind of like always like a version of that to some extent, and just no one would play Doug. And like for a long time, like there was just it didn't matter if it was like the 10 guys or whatever, like no one would play Doug. And I mean, I think he's right. Like that speaks volumes for.
It definitely speaks volumes, but I think that like the people who, whatever Doug's story was, that I don't know, I don't want to get the name wrong if it isn't Sauce, but they didn't acknowledge Doug's superiority, and I think that hurt Doug. But
I misunderstood. Okay.
but the thing is, that person, even if he doesn't acknowledge Doug as the best heads up player, he needs to like say the disclaimer. He's like, yeah, well, we don't know who the best heads up player, but clearly nobody's willing to challenge you.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we'll never know who's the best because
There's
a lot
no,
of factors going into it. People don't
yeah,
want to talk about those factors, but
yeah,
there was definitely a time period where nobody would play Doug, and that's like pretty telling. There's been a time period where nobody would play a lot of different people,
yeah. And
and
Doug
there.
said, a certain era. He doesn't say he's the best of all time. In fact, he says he might be outdated now. We're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. After he beat Negreanu, he gave like a shout out to his coaches, and
Coaches.
he said like he made it pretty clear they're way better than not way better, but they're better than him, and
Sure.
he basically said like I want to bet on them versus anyone right now. Um, yeah, he had an interesting battle with Sauce because he kind of talked about it in this video one time, and I really like this
I
video.
really
It's like
like that video. Yeah.
yeah, he basically said that if they played any other game, Sauce like if they made up a game on the spot, Sauce would figure out a better strategy and crush Doug. Sauce is just in Doug's mind like better at like smarter or better at games or strategy or whatever. But Doug just like outworked him, and Doug like I think he pretty much says like I'm not the best natural poker player, but I outworked everyone. And I will say something about Doug. Like I've actually known Doug for a really long time, but like the people I know that are the closest to Doug have all basically said one thing about him in common, and that's that he's like they all just think he's like the hardest working dude in poker. Whether it's making content, I've talked to people who worked with him making content, and they just like couldn't believe how much time he spent in a room by himself making content, or the heads up guys. By the way, like when they had the top 10, the 10 tables where there's like a clear cut pecking order, you know, five of the other players sitting there with him
Or Doug's
were his
guys.
students.
Yeah.
Like that's also very telling.
Yeah. And I was like, I had a podcast with Doug on Live for the Bike, and I joked that Ryan Fee was a content creator, and Doug just like was so insulted. He's like, "How are you gonna call Ryan Fee a content creator?" Because because
Yeah.
obviously how hard Doug works is,
Yeah.
telling. Yeah.
No, it's funny. But like something that Doug has to keep in mind too is like heads up is a very technical game, and he's a guy who really believes you just play by the theory all the time and you make minor adjustments, and that's fine. But in the live like full ring realm, there's a lot more room to make really big adjustments. And I'm not saying Berkey doesn't always make mistakes, but you also got to keep like you have to keep in mind that when you play this very like non-standard style, that might work extremely well and be more profitable than whatever you're trying to run in these full rank games with like these wild card players, you know? Um, so it's like it's always I always feel like when you become like the best at something that's similar to something else, you know you're gonna have a lot of trouble changing your mind on a different style because your style did so incredibly well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things is just, you know, I get asked, like, what made you so good at StarCraft? And I was like, sorry for this unsexy answer, but the game is just designed the way that I think.
No, I think that's a pretty sexy answer, honestly. I
But
like
it's
that
just
answer
like,
because it's like it's kind of mysterious in a way, that answer. Like we don't know how your brain thinks, so it didn't really.
I was number one ranked in Command and Conquer, and then Warcraft 2, I didn't make it to number one in one on one, but my team did in two on two. So in that era, like all three of them, I was top level. So it's just like, and I was young, and my
Mhm.
brain was very like versatile and mobile back then. So you know, I just felt like I knew how it worked, and just as I got older and new games came out, and I don't grasp them as quickly, so my brain doesn't function like that anymore.
Oh man, you have to explain that to me. I haven't been good at a video game since GoldenEye, and I don't think I'll ever be good at one anymore.
And so the thing about Doug is he's trying to make meritocracy out of poker. Like we talked about last time, it's like people have different goals in poker. For Hellmuth, it's bracelets. Some people like heads up people want to be king of the hill, or some people want to make the most money. Like there's just no meritocracy in poker, and of course it's variance. Then there's player of the year. Shout out to Dan Zach. um, but he really Doug really is for provable achievements, especially in poker. So I
Yeah.
think like that's where he feels Run It Once and um, Upswing Poker have the most credible people, which probably is not disputed for our training site.
Yeah, I mean they're just looked at as like the gold standards. And I mean their coaches are playing high rollers and yeah, I don't I'd be with you on that for sure.
So I think that's where Doug's coming from. It's like, you're running a training site, like one your face, the face of your brand should have something tangible.
True.
So Doug's claim to fame is he was the best heads up player in a certain era, and when he's not, then he acknowledges so.
Hmm.
So I feel like Doug's a very meritocracy driven person. Of course, Phil Galfond and many of the many of the upswing and run at once coaches have, you know, been around.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm friends with a lot of the people, and just like I've learned a lot from them. Hit the fast forward button, not with their training material, but just like direct contact with some of the coaches. Um, but yeah, that's the same thing with Garrett. Is like people in the public don't like, they say like bum on the streams or whatever. It's like he battled online. I don't know who he battled online, but definitely Eric Liu was in there, and I'm sure Galfon was in there at some point. But like live, I'm an eyewitness to him battling quite a few people that are pros that are played on stream. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't play that big back then, but I heard he was a pretty big gap battler online. Like he did not bum hunt online, let's put it that way.
yeah. So he battled, and like his battling career was definitely like around 15 years, give or take a couple of years. And even when he was on the stream, I know he battled some people off stream that are of very high caliber. And I don't want to say names because he's he's not mentioning them. So, and it's not my place to. But the people he played heads up against will clearly acknowledge, that they battled off stream.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sucks to see Garrett attack like this because, like, you know, of 10, like, I've known of him for at least 15 years now. Whereas the public's just like watching a few highlight clips and think they know everything. And then, Nick Airball's essentially attacking a retired battler, which is fine. Like Garrett admits that, acknowledges he's an entertainer now for streams, and he's not like potentially the player that he used to be, or on the hierarchy and the level he used to be. But, life changes. Like, the older we get, I got more risk averse. He has a kid coming along. He can't battle and just, lose his role.
It's interesting that I didn't realize that was like the accusation from Airball, but it's interesting because they're kind of doing the same thing. Like, Airball's clearly being an entertainer as well, and he's like taking up the heel role, and he's done a really good job with it. Like,
sure,
he's crushing it. But that's the same realm. That's not even the same realm. That's the same exact business plan.
Yeah, it's Garrett credits Airball too, and I think it's Escalation because the streams, first high stakes poker, like back in the day, right, like 15 years ago, but now the streams, it allows people to become instantly stars in the poker world, which all you need is money. It's not like if you need you want to become a brain surgeon, you need to get a medical degree. It's going to take a while. Or, in esports, you need to go through qualifications, and then you need to, whatever format, top 128, top 64, top 16, before you're king of the hill. Right now, it's poker. You just buy in and put a camera in front of it and, show some top 20 hands, and that's it. I think...
yeah, you guys have done that. It's pretty impressive. Like, remember Live at the Bike when it started?
Yeah.
It was just like in this little room, and it was like playing like 10-20 Hold'em.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, like, hearing you talk about that, like how far it's come.
Yeah, and credit to Ryan Feldman for a big leap, and longevity wise, I've been around the second longest now behind Brian, but we all did a lot, and I guess my contributions are more invisible. Like, Brian always knew and wanted me on board because I have an internet startup background. So my intent was to increase profitability, make it more lean, and sell it, which is the goal was reached. And then after going through the stress of owning a media company, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, it's better than a normal job, but no, it's too much stress. Even now, just like putting the games together, especially like, competing against Hustler, it's just like, when I'm done, no more, man. It's like,
dude, you look so relieved when the day's over for the stream.
Yeah, so there's two echelons, and shout out to the my coworkers like Brian and Michael Godoy and Corey for noticing, and they coach all the newer people, the newer staff too, when they're like, hey Wayne, how are you doing? And they're like, don't ask him how he's doing until the game goes.
That's fair.
And then towards the end of the day, it's just like, it's a bigger relief because some of the players need to be taken care of more than others, and I just need to be there to, whatever they do, whether it's money exchange, blah blah blah, getting them the exact 2-shot espresso latte. Just kidding. But yeah, just like, there are people who some of the players that are known for 20 years, at least 15, but some 20. Like Maria, I've known her for 20 years.
Yeah.
So like the the bond and just like the trust is it's it takes a long time. Even Garrett, like his when appreciate his vote of confidence of saying that he trusts me and whatever the hell Nick Airball said is like, sure, like maybe Garrett said something about me and it just got twisted, exaggerated, blah blah blah. But just like he and I know each other's relationship, and he's known of me, for quite a long time, and we don't have blemishes really. Like he went broke once, I went broke once, and he and I are both very upset. We're embarrassed that we went broke.
When, like, was this before streams games really took off and started playing super high stakes? I take it.
Yeah, I think he went broke online once. He was public about it in a podcast. I can't recall the exact details, but he was just so humiliated and borrowed from a friend, or just like he upset with himself for going broke.
Man, like we all went broke in the online days. It was like impossible not to go broke. I mean,
I didn't. That's the thing, and that's why my case is even more embarrassing because I knew better.
yeah.
And I go broke year 11. That's just so dumb.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I mean, it does. I don't think anyone's. It's very hard to be completely immune to that happening. But like, especially in the online days, it's like we're also trying to spin up roles. You know what I mean? And I have a friend who's kind of a nut when it comes to poker, but he always said that whenever he has less than like 250K, he just gambles it up and he takes a lot of shots and stuff. He's like, because if I need to get staked and run it back up, I can. He's like, and then once I get like a lot more money, he's like, I go into more protection mode. And so it's like at any point in your career, you could reach this level where you feel like it's worth gambling it up because you have resources if you need to.
Yeah, I guess in every passing day, increasingly the game gets harder and harder, and resources potentially can get more scarce, especially in
Yeah,
like this era.
that's definitely the other side of the argument, right? Is like you might not be
Timing.
profitable forever. I guess you could, get better at networking or do some other stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it just even if like 20 people watch this thing, I wanted to restate that Garrett's reputation for battling online was there, even though like I don't know, I didn't witness any. And if he and I played, he was under a different alias on a different site, not his main one. And I did, there are stories of him battling at Commerce, and I witnessed him battling at the bike. I knew of him battling at the Commerce anyway. Like just for people to just like disrespect his career just because it's not as easily viewable as like a couple highlight clips.
I mean the highlight clips are pretty strong too. Like it's a lot of pretty epic stuff at very high stakes. I don't know.
Yeah, but I just mean like people taking pot shots at him, just they don't know what he's been through, and just like that he was trying to do that King of the Hill thing, like
Yeah.
it's, and now he's at the point of his life where it's like he has a kid, or he was engaged, or has a 10-year had a 10-year girlfriend. Like things change, and he doesn't go out touting that he's the best anymore. It's like people are just envious that he's so popular and he gets these spots.
Yeah, I don't think the haters are ever gonna like use a lot of nuance with this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and it's just like
It's-
unless you actually like have played for a living, you don't appreciate like all the stuff that he's done.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, people don't realize what a slog poker is, and like, you know, like for instance, I think people who kind of armchair quarterback it think like when you go on a downswing, it sucks, but you're just on a downswing. And it's like, no, you feel awful.
Yeah, and it's
And
hard
like,
to get out of that rut.
yeah, and like your worst downswings, you not only do you feel awful about like the financial aspect of it, but you start to
Confidence.
you start to question your own
Yeah,
like mental strength and all these other things. And
which like I'll show by global graph soon, but like, and people say, I'll just show now. People say there's no downswings. There's one, two, three, there's four 6K downswings, or sorry, there's three 6K downswings and one 4K downswing in this, and this is almost like a straight up graph.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful graph for MTTs.
So yeah, it's just like that because, and I put in volume because like I can't. The one thing is like, I think Danzak's probably like this too. We need volume to get through the variance. Like I'm not gonna. You do well live in 1 week, even if the game is good. Is like, dude, you ran good.
Yeah,
Like, and if you win for a year, you ran good, and that's something that with Garrett's like facial expressions, um, you can see when he runs good, he just like, Jesus Christ, I just like ran super hot. Because I don't
yeah.
know how many hands online he has online. I'm guessing over 2 million, maybe over three. But he definitely knows what running hot looks like and running bad looks like. So when he runs hot, it's just like, well, just got hit with a deck.
Oh wow. Speaking of nice graphs, my man Dan Matthews is in the chat.
What's up, Dan Matthews? All right, name drop him. What's his graph look like?
I don't know. Can I say your screen name? He has you and him battle on the prettiest graphs on global. That's for sure.
Oh, he can only be one of like 15 people then, right? Or one of five people.
Yeah, he's got a nice looking one.
It's not one of my esports buddies.
Oh, is that the guy you told me about?
Which guy?
Um, Shoot, what's his
Nickel.
name?
There's Nickel 9 and there's Peter Gurney.
I
Oh,
was thinking of Nickel Nine.
he just go ahead. Let's do it. Who's Dan Matthews?
Oh, King of the North.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fuck that guy.
Yeah,
No, he's
if
good.
you
He's
look
good.
up his graph, it's beautiful too. It's just like straight up for 150K or whatever it is, and it's
Oh, yeah, I definitely do not want that guy at the table. So, but yeah, just like I can't stand. I just need to play through all this shit. Like, cannot
yeah.
stand. But yeah, Joe Ingram one, aka Chicago Joey says, "Where are my receipt? Where are the receipts?" So there's my receipts. But maybe I lose it all live. Maybe I'm just the worst ever.
Yeah, some tells me you don't lose it all live,
I'm down on live
but
at the bike.
no, I'm like you though. I definitely like I see people. I mean, I definitely take my shots at huge games, so fair enough. But I see people play like huge games, and
Bankroll on table.
yeah, and it's like I definitely I would like to play smaller and get way more volume in and do it that way as well. But then you do that for a while, and you grind and you make a bunch of money or you make some money or whatever, and then the taking the shot at a huge cash game or whatever gets more appealing, right? Because now you made the money and you want the glory a little bit, and it kind of goes back and forth. Then you get like crushed trying to get the glory, and then you get back to like
I
I want to grind it out. I want the high volume.
I I never want to feel. I'm such a like diva now too. Like I go on a 6K downswing and I'm like, fuck this game, and my graphs like straight up. But just like
Yeah.
even live, like I lost 2.5K in a 2040 limit game in a day, and I'm just like, fuck this game. Can I even win anymore? I'm just like, it's-
Yeah, I know that feeling for sure. Especially, I've been playing a little bit of Limit Hold'em lately, which has been really, really fun. Um, and man, if you lose like much at all at Limit Hold'em, in some lineups you leave feeling it's like the standardest swing ever, and you still leave feeling like you're the
yeah,
worst.
yeah.
I don't know what it is about that game in particular, but
I mean, I think the bad swings and no limit are the worst. It's just like when you just get, I was in JJ's game and like it. I mean, it's not even a joke. Like people witness me, they say you run so bad in no limit. Like I'll get kings against eights and I'll get quartered. Like I'll get 1/4, and just I'll get two outered, or even on stream I think I'm down like I don't even know. Like definitely after the relaunch I'm down, but it's just yeah. But the thing is, I know it's live. There's so few hands. Like if anybody had any of these bad online stretches live, that's gonna last like 9 months, year and a half, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot sooner when you're putting in the kind of volume that you put into.
Yeah, and just like, you know, as King of the North is going to attest, and as we know, global isn't exactly the toughest field, but you know, it's not without its wild animal crushers.
I think it's getting tougher too.
Oh, it definitely is. I see, and some of the regs have disappeared, or former regs. So I don't
Yeah.
know what happened to them. Maybe they changed names or whatever. But you know, King of North definitely one of the guys I don't want on my table.
Yeah,
um,
actually, I've played at the table with him like 4 times, and the first time I played with him at the table, we were at the Blitz final table, and I feel like I got the best of variance against him, and then ever since then, I don't know if I won a pot against him. So I'm in the same club as you. I don't really want him at my table either.
I can't think of the hands on the top of my head, but you know, I definitely had like we've definitely sucked down on each other. Just in pretty key spots, which is like close to the bubble or on the bubble.
Yeah,
So only one of us made it.
man, Global's like the last site with chat. I miss that. I like having the chat box available.
I like hearing it, except for some people that don't like me. So
I don't know. There's some fun in watching people tilt off and then like needling them and
sure,
something that's missing. Like now in ACR, like you throw rockets at people.
you
It's
can't
fun,
even.
but it's not quite the same. I miss the chat box. WSOP like treats us like children, where it's like they got rid of the chat and then they gave you the 3 dots and then they got rid of the 3 dots and now you can't do anything at all. And it's like, dude, sometimes I just want a guy to call me terrible names. Like it's fun.
Man, that who is that guy? Petrangelo, that guy. He's so proud that I know who he is. That I know who he is. I could name him on global. He was just so upset at me and just like saying all these nasty things. I'm like, man, I just
Really?
yeah,
Oh, I remember you sent me that chat.
yeah.
That was an all timer.
That was like, and then other people were telling me he's salty to them too. I'm like, man, you just need to like help yourself, man. This is not good for your mental health. Like,
Yeah.
I know
I think getting rid of the chat really sucks. I think it's bad for the game.
it's definitely easy
But
for
I'm sure there's a good reason for it, probably.
yeah, I know, and it's like one of the things that you know, not this podcast, but we're good. You and I are going to talk about is like how you just do productive things and like play on the side, and your mental health is just so much better.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
oh
Strangely, he's one of the saltiest players ever.
yeah, Stroh was mean to me too, but yeah. Anything to add about Doug? Is just like it's cool that he became the best, allegedly the best as a player in a certain era. But just like I'm also glad that he rechased after his esports ambitions and got like number one USA, US West in Warcraft 3.
Did he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's sick.
he got it recently. I wasn't watching him when he was streaming it. I jumped in, but I didn't know he got number one. But Warcraft 3 is like his game.
Oh wow, I had no idea. Yeah,
So
he. You want to know something funny about Doug? I used to talk hands and strategy with Doug when I was in college. This is like I don't know, 15 years ago now. 16 years ago. We were both playing like 2-4 through 5-10 no limit cash online, and I knew his name from like 2+2, and we played some hands, and then he was like, "Hey, you want to talk?" And I was like, "Sure." And we were on instant messenger, and we would
AOL
like talk strategy.
aim.
Yeah, and we
Sick.
would talk strategy on there, and then yeah, he went on to become Doug Polk, and I just was like, had a different road.
Jesse, it ain't
I'm
over.
just a humble guy with a couple luck box tournament scores.
Jesse, it ain't over. It still ain't over. You got shouted out on his video. He definitely painted you and Russell in a very positive light.
Yeah,
So he still remembers you.
yeah, no, I talked to Doug a bit for sure, on the regular.
I'm glad he's not
I,
ripping on us in YouTube videos. That's for sure. I don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
yeah, no, I don't know. if you got Ashley on here, she would tell you I definitely have been a fan of Doug over the years. Just like it's always fun when like one of the first people you talk to in poker just kills it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like fun to root for them and stuff.
Yeah,
But
I was Generation One esports, so and we're getting tangential because like I want to talk about like Berkey and Airball, but um, a bunch of the people in Generation One esports just became so successful. Like, very proud of them, and I need to catch up.
yeah,
um, Berkey, got any words about it? He's a super nice guy, and
Berkey's also a really hard worker, man. He's
yeah,
been in the game for so long. He like, yeah, he took a different route than Doug. He took a very non-traditional approach to poker and non-traditional route to playing and coaching, and I think he gets a lot of flack for that because it's not the GTO approach always.
yeah. I thought he was a
And
very he's not very game theory based because he seems to talk about it a lot.
what's that?
He seems to talk about it a lot.
Talk about what?
GTO? Berkey?
Oh yeah, I mean I guess I meant like traditionally doesn't really take the GTO. He has those like he has that how should I say it? Like his site, I believe, has incorporated a solver engine, sort of like similar to Odin or something like that. I think it's mostly pre-flop. He has coaches that take that approach for sure. Like he's not like against it, but he's just always taken a more like aggressive, creative route. And I feel like he gets a lot of flack for that because he's
Well, the thing is, does he have proof?
oh, of his winnings.
Not even just winning. Yeah, winnings or that his tactics work.
I mean, I guess you would say that he's like living proof of it. You could say that maybe it doesn't work anymore. I don't know if that wants to be like an argument, but like he's not lying. Like I know he's not lying when he says that he grew up like a pretty, I don't think he grew up with a lot of money or anything, and he's done quite well for himself.
Sure.
And he has a decent amount of money at least now. He didn't make it from crypto. Certainly didn't inherit anything. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you would say like he's the best proof of it, right? Now, if you wanted to argue that like the game has changed and like that approach doesn't work anymore, maybe that's a fair argument to have. But he's also changed a lot since then, and I feel like he catches a lot of flack because historically like his approach has been a lot more creative and a lot more out of the box and
Well, it's more just like, are there results? Because like even Doug will say like, when Hellmuth puts up enough results, like you got to start acknowledging it, even if you were making fun of it from the beginning, right? Like
Hellmuth is the sickest enigma of all time, man. It's really sick with Hellmuth. Not to go off track, but like that guy has the most non-standard approach to tournaments of like anyone playing at decent stakes right now, and he just crushes, it seems like, every single year.
yeah, I mean just like I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but it's like his game's underrated because, I'm guessing like you, definitely me, we're nicer people at the table. We don't berate them,
Hmm.
so we don't put anyone on tilt. But the way that he does things, he can get an extra edge by if he thinks that you're going to be bothered and thrown off balance or go after him. That's just an extra edge. If he goes after somebody, he knows his aggression factor is going to go from like a point 0.9 to a 3.1. Like
Hmm.
that's an edge that we don't have.
Yeah, it's true. I think he'll make more money off of like Rex than me. And I think I play pretty well versus Rex, but I just like will never get elicit those kind of responses
Yeah,
from him.
because if you don't antagonize certain people, then they're just you know how it is in like high stakes when you're in a race to beat the wreck before he busts. People do weird shit to
Hmm.
to ISO them or get action from them when you're out of position and the wreck's gonna call. It's no 3x. You might even like 7x and just like get a call from him and then ISO him out of position.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So just like Helmet has also been playing a lot longer than us, identifies with poker more than you and I, and he it's his legacy and identity. Like we think that a bunch of grinders now like identify with poker. He really identifies with poker.
Yeah.
He wants to so badly, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but like he wants to so badly to be known as one of the greatest poker players alive. And I think people like you and me would like to defend where he did do it right, or he does have a sick ROI, or he's still winning. It's like those super high rollers don't define everything. Like those guys may have more technical skill than him, but are they going to do? Are they going to have better ROI than he will in large field MTTs? Maybe, I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, at this point, definitely not. We know that much.
It's just like how you like the gains of being able to like fleece a wreck versus outplaying a super pro here and there. Like what's actually better?
Yeah, exactly.
Fleecing
That's
the wreck,
that's
man.
that's the really important point, right? That's
Mhm.
like the crucial part of that is like, who do you really want to be better at beating?
Yeah.
Like, who do you really want to be sitting with? Um, as
So,
silly as that sounds, but it's like, and I'm not even saying like that that's an obvious answer because it's your approach to poker. Like, somebody said this to me the other day. Um, it really just matters how you view poker. Is it a sport or is it gambling? And if it's gambling, then you're trying to find the softest game and playing it and make money. And if it's a sport, you're trying to see how high up the ladder you can go,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's weird because I go back and forth on it myself. Like I want to,
But like the thing is, you know, we've gotten props, but you and I are not in contention for the greatest of all time. Like it doesn't enter the conversation.
yeah,
So some people where it does enter the conversation it may mean more to them. People like Hellmuth or Garrett or Dan Zach or Linus Love, True Teller or whatever, like or Doug, like they want their piece of history. It's like these, like, like except these are the Starcraft stuff's like you can't debate it. Like
well, hold your horses, Wayne. I'm regging my first 100K next week. I'm about to go on my journey to be the best player of all time.
well, yeah, let's do it. Then I'll be like, oh, we had this podcast. I know him.
Actually, I'm gonna do this just so that this podcast can be the conduit to it.
Yeah, do it. So yeah, Berkey just like he's getting a lot of flack. Like, do you think it's deserved by Doug or Airball or
No, I mean I don't think it's. I mean, I think that words are getting thrown around that aren't fair.
yeah,
Um, like calling him a scammer is pretty.
yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah, like even if and I'm certainly not calling Berkey by any means like not a good player, but even if you thought he wasn't a good player, um, that's your opinion. And like, okay, so let's like for sake of argument, let's say that somebody was running a training site who wasn't a good player, right? If they think that they're a good player, they're still trying to sell a product that they think is good. That's not a scammer in my mind. That's just a person who's like delusional.
Yeah,
Now, whether people want to admit it or not, that's not even true. But like Berkey has won a lot of money at poker. So, but even if a person was like, "Oh, I'm like the best," and I haven't won very much, but I am the best. I'm gonna run this training site. Like, I think that's just like delusional in there. So I feel like that word in and of itself is just like not a fair word to use.
it's
Um,
also different demographics because it's like you like Chidwick's obviously proven for tournaments, right? But like if King of the North and I are crushing global and we're coaching and our cred is that we crush global, we don't belong with Chidwick or sorry, King of the North. But okay, I don't belong with. I'm not going to put his name in there. I don't belong in the same room as Chidwick, but we have results, right?
yeah,
So as long as you have proven results, and I guess some arguments are where are Berkey's receipts?
Yeah, like I don't want to go like too deep into uh, like coming to the defense of Berkey just because I don't care to like have arguments with people after this about it. Like it's just not really something that I'm
Fair.
interested in.
Yeah.
But like somebody made a really good point. I think it was Dankness, but I might be wrong, where it's like um you're kind of like accusing him of not being a good coach because he may not play 200 400 heads up, or he's not like you think he's not winning at like the highest stakes. And meanwhile like he's running a site that focuses on people beating like 2-5 5-10 live.
Mm.
Like he's not like, oh hey, I'll teach you how to beat 25-50 online. Like that's not what he's doing. So it's like it's kind of like you're creating this criteria for what he should be doing that's not even like close to what he's actually doing, and it's just like kind of
Well,
unfair.
that's Doug's journey is the merit, the proven meritocracy. That's kind of like probably why he goes after Tom Dwan too, and he respects certain battlers, right? He wants the people who actually to be the best to be recognized instead of some
Yeah, yeah.
you
No,
know
don't get me wrong. I really admire Doug for that. Like, I also want that. Like, I think that all poker players in my mind want to see some level of consistency rewarded at the highest level. Like I remember when I first got into poker, I would get excited when like a big name player won a tournament because it's like showing that like the best player can do it a lot. Like
right.
there's not that much variance that it's hopeless.
Yeah.
And
But
at the same idea, like we want this game to acknowledge the best player. And I really admire that Doug wants it that way.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know if I don't know. Like I'm kind of torn on a lot of this stuff,
Me too.
but I do
It,
admire that a lot about
it's
his
also
thought process.
bad for the game when like proficient players keep winning over and over, because what's better for the game is when no names win over and over, so it encourages other people to
Yeah,
play.
for sure. I mean, it's kind of sick because I always thought PLO would do better. Maybe it does a lot better in private game settings, but I thought it would do a lot better than it has. Because PLO is exactly what we were talking about before. It kind of like levels the playing field a lot. Like there's a lot more variance and there's thinner edges, especially pre-flop. And if you're not nearly as good at the game as the people you're playing with, or if you're kind of new to the game, um, like if you go play No Limit, you're just going to get torched in this day and age. And if you go play PLO, like you may win some days.
I
And
don't know.
if you
PLO is getting pretty rough,
yeah,
man.
what's that?
In the last year, PLO has gotten pretty rough. Like it just the gap's been closing for sure.
Yeah, but I just think like even if the gap's massive, like there's just so much variance to the game that it gives you a much better chance to gamble.
Yeah.
But like the problem is I mean, and you're probably the best person, one of the best people alive to attest this. Nobody wants to watch it on a live stream.
It's just too
It's-
hard. And the thing is, the people I want to watch, other people don't want to play against. So it's just like a massive chicken the egg. Because like
yeah,
when the upswing guys like Chris Wayner and Dylan Weissman, then we had like Zach Freeman, Bryce Yockey, Chris Brewer. Like I wanted to watch a lot of them, and then like there was some cool stuff there. But how do you get those guys at the table?
yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I want to watch it on a live stream, but it seems like not enough people want to watch that it ever turns into anything.
It's just
I
like
know I know Live at the Bikes tried it. I know other sites have tried it at the World Series. They try it, and the viewership just drops. It's a little sad.
it's too tough because it's like part of the appeal of No Limit Hold'em is that when you watch it, you think you're as good or almost as good or even better than the people you see. And of course, there's
Yeah.
that illusion with the whole card. So, like, a lot of times when I commentate, it's because I play on the show. I'm like, it's like the guy with the hand is the only person who doesn't know what his opponent has. Like, literally everybody's opponent knows what he has, the viewers knows what yeah, it's just like it's brutal. So it
Yeah.
creates a very unique experience where the viewer thinks so much higher of himself because he has this information, the key information that the person he potentially humiliated doesn't have.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So like Jared Greiner, who's tournament crusher, um, he doesn't know anything about me, and I turned my top pair into a bluff, and he folded, and his friends, his crew, just like were like, "What are you doing?" But the thing is, like, and you know how it is, you don't always get a live read. But when he bet the turn, I was like, "This is for standard value, but it's not nutted."
Yeah.
So I just went for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is beautiful in that way. It's also, I think this is kind of part of what you said, but you didn't quite say this, but it's like it's beautiful in its simplicity, a limit hold'em. It's like it's an incredibly simple game that's also very, very complicated
Yeah.
when you start really digging in the strategy. And so it's like there's room for everyone to be entertained because when you first get into it, it's a simple game, so you can get into it quickly. But then the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the more complex the game is, and the more like,
It's scary, yeah. It's just
yeah,
like, like when Chris Burr was coming up, like I played, it was I think 5-5 or 5-10 with him on Live at the Bike, and you just look at him and he's like, if he's not a super pro yet, he's super pro in the making.
hmm
So the button raise and I flatted in the small blind. If you know anything about me, and I flat in the small blind, I'm setting a trap. So he squeezed with like queen deuce or something like that, and I just induced bluff and I got him.
what'd you have?
I had nines. This is
Nice.
probably the only time ever in my life I've flatted nines in the small blind. Now I've done it in tournaments before, like occasionally when I know the
Yeah.
the razor, but it just like if you know anything about me, then you're just like, oh, flying the small blind, something must be up.
Hmm.
God definitely has a plan. Definitely doesn't have the 4-5 suited.
Yeah.
um,
Especially, yeah, I know what you mean.
but yeah, just catching a couple of people off guard, especially. And that's the thing is, it's like I play all the games, so I'm not a no limit hold'em reg. And then when that I pull something like that, you know what happens right afterwards? Like, let's play heads up. Like, let's go. I'm just like, no, let's not go.
Yeah. I love the call outs right after one hand. That used to take a lot more place back in the day online. They were really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My buddy Mike's favorite moment back when we lived together was I three bet a guy really light. I feel like I had like King Jack offsuit and I was like cut off or hijack and he was like under the gun.
Oh man.
And he wasn't I won at showdown. I might even missed a bet somewhere like on river or something. I made like a king and won at showdown versus like his queens or jacks. And he immediately wrote, "Hey Jesse, retard, want to play heads up 6 to 8 tables?" Not like this guy didn't even ease into it. He just jumped right into 6 to 8
And that's
tables.
what Stred did to me. Well, he didn't say 6-8 table. He's like, I hate the way you play. Let's play heads up. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, "Oh, thanks, man, for the offer, but I'm gonna make lunch soon, so I'm not really interested." And he wrote in all caps,
Chicken
"I didn't
in.
ask about your pathetic life. I just care about heads
Oh
up."
my goodness. Yeah, it's about right what
Which
I
is
thought.
like,
Yeah.
this is why I miss the chat box though, because like that should probably hurt my feelings, but it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
I just don't want to get shot up by one of these guys, man. There's just too many shootings.
Yeah, and at this point, like people are pretty good at finding IP addresses easily.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I honestly just feel really concerned for like women nowadays. Like, as a guy, I feel like fairly unsafe.
mhm.
Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah, it's just, like
no, it's a weird world for sure. I don't know if you saw.
Melissa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't get into that, but that tweet was, you know, it was not fun to see that.
Okay, well, I guess let's get into Airball because we want to
Oh yeah,
Get through the Nate. So the thing
Alphonse
about
too.
Airball, like, yeah, he's building a character, and every era slash generation is gonna be different, and this is what he chooses to do, and it's just colliding with a different generation.
Hmm.
Like, how old are you?
37.
37. Okay, so you still have memory of pre-internet, right? Growing up,
Free internet?
pre-internet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I remember in grade school somebody saying that they printed out something from the internet. It was like an article, and we all thought that was wild.
so before the internet, like face-to-face interactions are forced because when you grow up with internet, you literally don't have to deal with the real world.
Hmm.
So that's an era that Nick Airball's in. Like he's people who grow up with internet are more in tune with like say, Instagram, TikTok, the way YouTube is interpreted by the mass public, whereas like, I'm older than you and I have more memory of a non-internet era.
Yeah,
And the etiquette was just totally different.
yeah. It's weird. We do need to go back to a time where you can get your ass kicked a little bit more easily for
Yeah.
what you say. I think
Do you
because
think Berkey's gonna deck Doug?
I don't know. He alluded to it, man.
Yeah.
That was the most ramped up. Berkey doesn't. The thing about Berkey is he doesn't strike me as a guy who would say something like that unless he means it.
Mm.
Like he doesn't. I don't think he would throw that out there very loosely. And I don't know if he want like at this point would have wished to have not said that.
I don't. I
But
mean, I think if he decked Doug, Doug would just be like, "Well, I had it coming," and just like laugh it off.
yeah, yeah. Doug's a pretty objective dude. he, he might.
It's like it's
Um,
not like he's unaware of the consequences because some people who talk shit just are not aware that yeah you're gonna get decked. I think Doug's like fully aware that any one of these days like one of the guys he rips on is gonna like deck him in the face. It's just like oh well that was fun.
I feel like Doug would drop a YouTube video titled "I got decked by Berkey," and it
Yeah,
would be like a
a,
like that
a
old
sick one.
Sock'em boxer game, but like he puts their heads on it for the thumbnail or something like that.
Yeah, he'll take a punch. But
Yeah.
Burke will just deck him right, not kill him. Big difference.
Yeah, yeah, that was a wild moment.
So yeah, I think Nick Airball is just like playing his generation up, and that's the same thing with like Rampage and Mariano and whatever. It's just like 4 or 5 years ago, I was at Gardens, sweating the big mix game, and like they were just like, Wayne, what's up with these vloggers? And it's like I had the same question. I was like, I think poker vloggers are like your beloved high school teacher. Like when you're in that growth process, you're like, oh my God, thank you very much for, teaching me, caring for me, and getting me over the hump. And then when you grow up, you're like, oh my God, like my high school chemistry teachers not going to be working at Pfizer or Merck or Johnson and Johnson. So, and it's just the way that information is just communicated. Because if you go straight from A to Z, like I don't even know if like button clicker or Linus like talks to me at poker that I would understand. I'd be like, English only at the table, please. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the vloggers are intentionally I don't want to say dumbing it down, but like I mean they have to appeal to the masses or
yeah,
else you don't want to appeal to
the people that are
the
going to
high end
actually
poker
watch
player
this.
because there's just not that many of them. But like, man, I made a couple of vlogs on Ashley's channel, and every time the process is me talking about a hand, and I talk for way too long, and it's like me trying to get out all of my thoughts, and then hearing it back and being like, "Holy shit, no one wants to listen to this," and then like
A lot
editing
of
it down to
people.
like a third of what I said, and then being like, wow, still, I doubt many people want to listen to this. And then editing it down more. And then eventually I just sound kind of like, or at least I hope I sound a little bit like the more successful vloggers, where it's like I kept it short and sweet. And so I do think, I think there's like a lot to be said to what you just said. Like it's clearly set up in a way that's not, you're not going to get like deep theory because
the
That would
public
just
can't
get
consume it.
no
Yeah.
views, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like, Ben CB puts out some good stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know. Part of it is just like when you talk as a poker veteran, you've been beaten up by variants. You don't have the dream of like, because I see so many people. They're like, I'm going to be the best poker player. I'm like, yeah, buddy, just let's get past year one before you stage it like that.
Why don't you have a downswing first?
Yeah, and just like they don't know how many grizzled veterans have just like, you know, survived many years without many decades without, you just adapt to this industry how you can, and at some point
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, I don't even want to be the best. Like that sounds miserable. Like I don't want to play Linus every day or.
Yeah, it's thin up there. It's real thin, and there's a lot of variance. Like Doug's a great example of that. Like, or Doug's crew, those guys talk about, how like you lose 5 to 10 buy-ins in a day, and they're like, oh, these other guys, like some of these guys lose 5 to 10 buy-ins, and they act like it's the biggest deal, and it's like pretty standard. And it's like, I go on downswings as well, but they dealt with a lot more variance, and they were playing at a lot higher variance games and probably thinner edges or whatever. And
Yeah, it's
yeah, it wasn't something I was super interested in for if I didn't have to do it.
one of the things. King of North, high five, high five. We could have this graph is because we're playing against who we're playing against.
The first time you showed me your graph, I literally said like, "Yo, you and King of the North have you should see his graph too because
I've
it was
seen
like
it.
the only.
I've seen it.
I mean, every MTT graph just has like these weird
Yeah, yeah.
ups and downs and just like I don't know how you guys did it. I know
I
there's
have
smaller fields
volume.
on global, but it's pretty absurd.
I have massive. I know he does too, but just like when it's Sunday, I mean, I've lightened up now because like I'm just tired enough to work. But like when I was like Sunday and streaming, like I'm playing this entire day from 11:45 and all the way until the 7:30, 1:10. I forgot what it's called. Night Predator.
Hmm.
Like I'm just like I was committed, and I'm sure like midway in the stream, you're just like, especially when you're buried with all these, you just like bust all these MTDs. You're like, fuck. It's like I can't even. But I don't regret doing those streams because it's like I'm, I'm in broadcast. I need for people to see that like I've done. I don't want like I never wanted to be attacked and just be like, I win. Just trust me. I win. And only online MTTs, because there's no poker tables ratings equivalent now, right?
Hmm.
Only online MTTs is where you can show your graph. That's
Yeah.
not manually inputted.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of said what you said like a few years ago. Like everyone just cares about hand and mob, right?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's actually a terrible resource because
You don't.
some of those guys are just down money
Yeah.
and you have no idea. And but it doesn't matter. That's what people care about. And that's kind of why like before when you said Berkey like wants this meritocracy, like I admire that a lot because um
Doug,
he's at least trying to like spread some truth into like,
you
hey
mean
guys, maybe
Doug?
we shouldn't base it off of who has the highest hand in mob when they don't incorporate losses in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's no easy answer for any of this, man.
No, there isn't. It's because there's no meritocracy in poker. It's just like the best case scenario is like, do you want to chase this, or this, which is number of bracelets, player year, like biggest winner online, like biggest winner MTTs. Like those super high rollers. Like I hear people are getting backed or swapped action or just like they're down. Like, like I know he's very public about his results, but just like somebody who's playing high stakes now is like really buried in his backing deal. And it's not like he's a very good player. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, it's pretty sick. Some of the yeah.
So what do you think like this Airball versus Garrett thing? Like, where do you think it's headed, or just kind of a battle of generations. And
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. I feel like it's gonna just slowly fizzle out, probably. Like these things always kind of turn into like either people just are exhausted of talking shit about each other, or I like some. I had a few friends predict that by the end of this Airball Berkey heads up battle, they'll just be friends, and like I really wouldn't put it past them. Like
I
I feel
don't.
like heads up matches are the great equalizer.
Are they?
People gain like look at Negreanu and
Doug?
Doug. They
I
like
think
gained
it's
their.
totally different.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They're going to be in a room for hours and hours together, presumably alone based on their
I think their
negotiations.
personalities just don't mesh well.
That may be true. But look at that tweet. There was a nice little back and forth where they were both really
Oh,
funny.
all right. Let's put up the Galfon tweet. Here we go.
Yeah.
This was the in the missed arbitration. Who would it be an issue if the person sit behinding Nick Airball wasn't Ishan? What about Lynn, Mars? Is Berkey less scared of them? Berkey is like, I'll get you a puppy if you need emotional support. I'm not playing you the scout. I don't care who it is. Airball says, dude, go suck a dick for a 25-50 buy-in. And
Yo, can
get
I say something? That's like the
yeah.
epitome of that escalated quickly, by the way.
And then, Galfon, hey guys, heading to bed. Ball is currently in Berkey's court to give the thumbs up on moving ahead. Nobody's sweating and full decision and on future disputes on for me. And Berkey's like, sorry for the slow response. I had a busy night sucking dick for a buy-in. Sounds like we're back on. I mean, they clearly know it's in good fun, but like, you saw I don't know if you saw the photo today of like Berkey and Airball, but like Berkey did not look like he was having a good time.
Oh, in that picture at the
Yeah, it was
at
like
Bobby's room.
it was
Yeah.
like Huss. I heard Manny was there. Berkey, Ishan, Airball, but Ishan looked like he was having a good time. I think Airball looked like he was having a good time.
But they're still playing together. Like any of them could have gotten up and left, and they still decided to play. I feel like
Well, that's the thing about high stakes poker is you're a slave to the game. Like, do you want the EV or do you want?
yeah, it's true. But man, I don't know.
I don't
The
either.
fact that they can joke like that they are basically joking about the same thing together
Yeah, I mean it's
gives me
maybe
hope for the two.
maybe like you know, why I'm so boring is because I don't want any of this drama, but it does bring our eyes. What
I think we have a prop bet out of this. I think we need to bet on whether or not they say nice things about each other at the end of all of this.
Well, I mean, I think Berkey can force himself to say nice things even if he's not fond of somebody.
That's true.
So,
I'll ask him in private. Hey, did you mean those things? Then we'll sell.
oh man.
um, by the way, is just based on this like interaction is Galfon not like the sweetest man of all time?
Yeah, it's just
He's just such a wonderful human. He just writes, "Glad we're all on the same page, guys." I love Galfon.
yeah. I mean, most people do.
Yeah, he's just like it's just like two basically like two gamblers talking trash, and then just like a family man trying to
It's
arbitrate.
nothing that he hasn't seen before too. It
Oh,
just
for sure.
yeah. Um, yeah, just game running is tough. The people accusing Garrett things like Art has come around a little bit, and Art went on Hustler, and I'm not gonna say he's not welcome on Live Bike, but he has to like settle some issues and know that the Recs come first, and the Recs kind of say who's okay, and you better be breaking numbers, in order to show your value, because it's like
Hmm.
it's not good enough. Like I get DMs too to watch me on stream. I don't move the needle, so that's just the reality.
Yeah, I think that there's some like so 5 to 10 years ago. I think that the people who hosted streams had very little understanding compared to now about the analytics, right?
Yeah,
And now you guys are really dialed in,
very. Yeah,
and people don't seem to understand that, and they don't want it to be about like it to be their fault, like, oh, I don't move the needle.
Yeah.
But
But like when you're in the back end, the thing is like when you're on your own, all you get are the DMs of the people who want to see you, and those are such a small number. Like when you
yeah,
see certain people, literally goes to 4 digits, sometimes even 5 digits of concurrent viewership, and it's like, you know what, numbers speak. Sorry.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like it's funny, but like this is why I liked doing this is why I studied math at school and like liked math so much. It wasn't because math is fun or sexy or whatever, but it's just like the numbers don't lie, right? Like there's no discrepancy there.
They
Um,
can be fudged, but like it's just, real numbers.
yeah,
Yeah. It's,
but it's just I mean, it's just you can't make any counter arguments like, oh, what I did this or I did this. It's just like, no, I have real hard evidence right here. I've got data. Like, what do you want from me?
part of it is some players too are diminishing returns, and that's kind of hard for people to accept too, because it's like, let's make an example. Will Kasuf, like that WSOP ran, and then afterwards he did like a slow roll, and just like then you're done. Like you can't have that and be repeatable.
Yeah,
You're not Mike Matasow. Mike Matasow is repeatable.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. He also probably shouldn't have stolen from his friend
That's true too.
at a. Um, I did a. It's funny you mentioned him because I did commentary for this 888 tournament in Barcelona one time, and I cannot. This was after that World Series, but this is like a few months after. Man, I cannot tell you how many people in the chat were like, "Where's Will Kasuf's table? We want to see Will Kasuf play." And
Really?
I
Well,
just thought it was, yeah, they like,
talk or play? I'm just kidding.
yeah, well, they want to see him talk. I guess you're right, and like, and this doesn't go against what you're saying because you're right. He just like he dropped off after that, but man, when he was sought after by the fans, it was powerful. It was kind of like the first time I saw Hellmuth in action because like I met Hellmuth after I had played out my final table to main. It was like the next year. And I had like some people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, like I really appreciate the final table," or I like maybe I like took some pictures of people or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, I'm the man." And then I like did this like random thing with Hellmuth that they filmed like for some little segment for the World Series the next year, and just the walk from the poker like the tournament room to the poker room, I think like 80 people must have ran him down and asked for.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Dude, that guy is it's unbelievable.
That's why it's just like I feel like I was so no I was very naive about what he brought to poker as well, not just like the fame. And
Yeah,
like we like I went to dinner with Helmuth and some of the people from Live at the Bike, and one of the guys in the restaurant recognized them, and he's like, "That's Phil Hellmuth," and I'm like, "Oh, like I recognize you." And then Phil's like, "Of course he recognized me." I'm like, "Dude, I'm trying to give you a compliment here, dude." Like, I don't know. Like people recognize me too. They just
I love that that's his response. He's just so very Hellmuth.
Yeah, and it's fine. Like once you get to know him, he's definitely like a nice guy. And to be fair, like even though he gets accused of like him thinking that he's the door opener of poker, like there's a bigger picture. Like if he's welcoming to like all the new school people, basically anybody who's anything in poker, isn't that like a good thing? Like, would you rather him be elitist and
Yeah, true.
not so like I just the older I get, the more appreciation I have, and there's the branding genius that he does. It's just like I don't know if he quantified it, but at some point he's like his blow up's like what the bleep, bleep, bleep. It's like okay, well that gets the views, so you know
Yeah.
now you have a Carl's Jr. ad.
That was so good too. Uh he's
Um,
just man, he just cannot stop giving us good stuff. Remember when he ate the sandwich last World Series?
yeah, and he did really good on Live at the Bike too.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
was great. I forgot about that, the storm out.
yeah, the Storm out, and he was on recently, and just like there were some hands that, whew, He knows what he's doing for sure.
Yeah.
um,
No, he's great. I hung out with him one time, and he was talking about the game that he plays in Silicon Valley, and he was like saying how somebody got kicked out from it because they were too good.
but
And I was like, "You're not worried about losing your spot?" And he was like, "Never." He was like, "They love me out there." He goes,
he's an entertainer. Yeah.
yeah." He goes, I take a bad beat and I start freaking out." He's like, "And they put on music." Like he even said it, like, I do my Hellmuth thing,
Yeah.
like freaking out. He's like, "And they put on music and they all start dancing." He's like, "They love me, man." And it's like, yeah, he knows. He's aware of what's going on. Is he a hyper competitive human? And that's where this all came from? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
just part of it is he wants acknowledgement, and
yeah,
he's like fighting a losing battle in a sense that like he should just take my narrative and just it'd be an easier defense. It's like the way that he defines being the greatest is longevity and number of bracelets and whatever, and because there's so few provable things in this game and industry. And he even quantifies it, but it sounds when he says it sounds like he's making excuses. It's like oh, people can find money to play or start it with more money. It's like in tournaments, it's equal ground. I'm like, yeah, say it, except don't sound salty when you say it, and it'll probably do better.
yeah. Phil's kind of fun because he's like the ultimate human where when you study like a lot of poker and you try to make like a really technically savvy game, you might also like eventually like come upon the opinion that he's not as good as his results look like, right?
Yeah.
But he continues to perform every year. So he has like this X factor that people aren't that are really technically savvy aren't acknowledging. And we've talked about that already. But like
Doug's mentioned it actually. Like even Doug says it's a huge thing to be famous because you get extra action. You get more people
yeah,
saying "fuck it," I just don't want to play with hand with them, or "fuck it," like if I'm gonna donate to stack, or they try to bluff you more.
yeah, for sure. But the cool thing about it to me is like uh it's interesting because if you kind of like jump into his brain for a second, you're basically this guy who's been presumably doing something that's really good that most people don't know about in poker. And you've been crushing MTTs for like 20 years and you're continuing to crush MTTs. And you just have like this huge group of people like, this guy's overrated, he's not that good. And like, if you like, when you start to really like empathize for that, it would be infuriating from his standpoint.
Yeah, but
And so,
that's
like, I get why he tilts off to some extent. I get why he gets so mad and tilts off when he loses because he's like, oh, this is more fuel for them to just like hate on me now. But like, really, I'm just the man and I'm crushing all these tournaments, and it's
which
interesting.
he is, and business deals or whatever. It's just like you could rip on the stuff he represents. Like I don't know what the hell Bitcoin Platinum or whatever, but like he does have, it's putting a magnifying glass on his failures rather than what's working. So
Yeah.
I think
Have you ever seen the Bitcoin Latinum graph?
I've seen it. It's
Pretty good one.
I don't want to call out some other people who claim that they're pros, but it kind of looks like that.
I was gonna say it's like the exact opposite of you and
King of the
actually it's
Hill.
not even. It's like the exact opposite of somebody who played two tournaments and won like the Sunday Million.
Um, but yeah, I mean the overlay is kind of going down on global. That's kind of sad. The guarantees and the overlays. So you know, King North and I are gonna have to find more jobs.
Oh man.
I got two more trophies coming. The global trophies. They're nice. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god! Like I played in a bike tournament, and then one of the guys are like, "Dude, I seen a picture of you with trophies. You win a big one?" I'm like, "No, these things are tiny." He was like, "You're a pro, right?" And I'm like, "No, I have two jobs." They were like, "But they showed off a picture of you." I'm like, "Yeah, like I want people to think I'm good."
I mean, some of those are yeah. I
The
don't
trophies
know.
are cool, man. Like they're high
Yeah,
quality.
they're cool ass trophies. I I aspire to win one of them at some point.
There's a lot of events. They're easy to win. I mean, you know how it is. You just play enough of them, and
Yeah.
you will run good in a couple of them.
Yep. That was my game plan live, and it worked out pretty well.
I'm very lucky. Like I, most of the time, like I'm getting five of them. I have five of them total, and I only came in second in one. But I was really upset because I had like a 3-1 lead on him, and somehow I lost.
Oh,
Yeah, but you know, I think I'm 5 for 6 when I've been in the final two. So that's obviously just very lucky.
that's really nice.
Yeah. So that's why I just like I try not to be or I try to suppress my saltiness when I, come in second. It's like, dude, one, you're lucky to get in second in the first place, and then two, just like, yeah, got enough firsts.
Yeah.
So do you want to mention Live at the Tropicana is going to come out at the end of April, as Alex contacted you to make appearances?
We haven't talked in a while. I'm really excited for that, man.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of streams in Vegas. It's like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to like, I definitely want to help like do whatever I can to help build something like that because I think it's going to be, I don't know, I'm just so excited. Like a live stream in
Help
Vegas.
Alex, help Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like a live stream in Vegas is something I've been waiting for forever. Like I've talked to the guys at the Win, um, and they always kind of like consider it, but it's tough. It's tough for them to pitch it upstairs because it's not an immediate moneymaker.
Yeah. In fact,
And
like it's very easy to lose money.
yeah, like Bellagio ran a stream for a little bit, and I
Putts.
thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, they could have like got their own room and stuff. But the Bellagio Hotel and Casino does not support poker very well. I know the floor staff there really well. I've played there the most of all the places over the years, and I really like the floor staff. And every year the Five Diamond tournament gets worse, and it's not the floor staff's fault. They just refuse to give them any room to do it. It's just a disaster over there. So I think that's probably what happened with the live stream was it was just too hard dealing with the people upstairs. But anyways, sorry to go on a little rant. I'm really excited for that.
What do you think of Doug's offer for 100K for the winner for Berkey and Airball to play at the lodge?
He did offer to he did offer to not make fun of Berkey the whole time, which is like a big
Yeah.
upping the ante.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if I'm Berkey,
Snap take.
it's tough not to take it, right? Like if you think
The
you're a
thing
big
is, do you
favorite
believe
too,
him?
like
Do you believe Doug when he says he won't make fun of him?
yeah, that's tough. You could have some sort of dollar penalty if he makes fun of him to like enforce that maybe.
Yeah.
Like you got to pay me, $5,000 for any show that Galfon decides you made fun of me or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I do think he's if he thinks he's a favorite, he really wants to just be alone in a room with Airball and play him every day because Berkey's not a heads up player. Like he'll prepare for this. He'll come out. He'll have a strong game plan, but he certainly won't be an unexploitable heads up bot, right? Like that's clearly not what he's going to do, and that's fine. But that means that whoever Airball has helping him out now gets access to everything that Berkey's doing, and like they're just going to get to see tons and tons of hands and be like, hey man, he does this and this and this. Like that's a huge advantage for the underdog if we're assuming that Nick's the underdog, which like the betting markets are. And it's just like that's a lot to give up. So I think if he passed on it, it might not be the worst idea. It like depends on the stakes, right? What are they playing? They playing 200, 400?
Yeah. I mean, that's I think the latest.
Yeah, so that's only 2.5 buy-ins that Doug's offering up to the winner. So like if Berkey thinks he wins like 65% of the time, that's like 65,000. So it's like a buy-in and a half. I'd probably pass like if I think about it that way.
Hmm.
If you think you're a big favorite, but it's tough to pass that up, right?
Yeah, right. That,
Like it's just like a free whatever.
yeah, it's like overlay.
Yeah.
It literally is. I mean, what are they doing? Cash or like
What's
heads?
that?
Are they doing like sit and go style or just like freeze out or
No, I think
cash?
it's cash, right?
So they can reload at any time?
Yeah, I think Doug's just giving it to whoever or offering it to whoever wins money at the end
So,
or loses less. If there's rake. I don't think there's rake.
so if you play 100 bigs, that's like you said, 2.5 buy-ins, right?
Yeah. Or sorry, I shouldn't have said like whatever. It's 250 big blinds if they're playing deeper. I forget that like not everyone plays cash where you buy in for 100 bigs. I've been
I
playing
mean, but the
mostly
thing
cash
is,
online lately, so
yeah, if your bonus is 250 bigs and you buy 100 bigs, it's pretty good, right?
yeah, for sure. But man, it could like legitimately turn him from a pretty big favorite into like a loser. If Nick just has a better team behind him or whatever, like giving him
Yeah,
relaying the data and saying like exactly what that I don't know what either one has going on, but it's just like that is a big risk, is all I'm saying.
yeah. So I think part of Doug's challenge is he knew who to get help from.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Doug against Negroni. Like, I mean, if it's true, if you know who to get help from, that's like
No, no,
huge.
no, absolutely. Um, actually, I met one of the guys was on one
Clicker?
of the guys got torched by Nick Airball actually,
Yeah,
so I don't
button
know,
clicker.
maybe I'll still hire him, but button
Henry.
clicker.
Yeah. Um,
And yeah,
I
he's got Nick clearly is gonna have access to Doug's. Doug's gonna give Nick some advice, I assume, since Doug's
that's
probably rooting for Nick
yeah.
based on current events.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, so I do think if Berkey turns it down, it's probably the smart move.
Hmm.
But how many hands are they playing? It's like 10,000 hands. It's not that many
Yeah,
hands.
it's not that many. Well, I don't know how
5,000.
many hands, but that's interesting because if Doug was going to offer some sort of coaching help, like connections to coaching help, and they play at the lodge, then it's more accessible.
Yeah. Oh, Doug could turn it into a whole series. Like
Massive
Doug
conspiracy
teaches Nick
theory.
how to play heads up. Yeah.
Yeah. I doubt he would do that, but still, massive conspiracy theory and just finding on the
Yeah.
internet's tough.
Well, no, it'd certainly be insane promotion for sure.
Yeah, that's probably why he's offering it. Well,
Yeah.
Doug's really smart, and the next level thing is kind of like, yeah, I mean, offering some sort of coaching slash piece, and then he gets a, you know, EV back and maybe even the 100K back and more, and he gets the videos. I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
lot of levels.
Yeah, for sure. Man, it's
A lot of levels.
I love this kind of shit personally because I love like thinking about these weird
Yeah, because it's
non-standard spots and
because it's just like when you hear an offer like that, it's just like, whoa, that's a good offer. Wait a minute, Doug's not dumb, so why is he doing this?
yeah. Dude, there are people out there, by the way, that make a living off of stuff like this, like
Yeah.
off of figuring out these weird prop bets, and
Oh
they're
my
just
god.
like kind of like I think they like play golf as a profession, but they're basically just prop betting and hustling, and it's pretty cool. All that stuff is really super interesting to me. I would have trouble with it myself because you get really close, like you know what I mean. You're basically gambling with like one person, and it's like tough to win money off of like one person when you're like close to them or whatever.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before. It's like a lot of the recs like help me in life, and I just it's okay playing with them occasionally, but they become your friends, and it's like they actually want to help you, like not be a vanilla pro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think poker's nice too because it creates like this setting where you're like, all right, we all sit down at the table and we agree that we're like we
Bad.
both think that we're better than each other,
Yeah.
and now we're just gonna figure it out in a monetary form. And when you're sitting around prop betting with people that you're like become friends with or are friends with, it feels like something different a little bit. Like you're just trying to like kind of like one up each other on like who has this like asymmetric information. I don't know. It's just it feels like different, and it's not something that I stomach very well personally.
Do you think this feud between like Doug and Solve for Y is gonna get like? I know it's obviously bad, but how bad do you think?
Um, I don't know. That's a good question. I know it'll be very good for both of them for their exposure.
Right, exposure wise, but like it's the bad blood seems like fairly real.
Yeah,
It's
no, I agree. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like I said before, like I feel like the when Berkey says something like, or you have a fight to prepare for, I think like he doesn't say stuff like that very often.
sure.
And I think Doug's really smart. So I think Doug will like realize that's probably somewhat serious and maybe back off a little
I
bit.
don't think he's gonna back off.
Maybe not.
I literally think like if Berkey actually decked Doug, Doug would just make content out of it.
You might do that. I mean, you can't cry over spilt milk, right? You might as well
Yeah.
at least
No,
make lemonade. Is
he
that
would
the
joke
phrase?
about it. Like every single attack that Doug's made, it's just like he's not dumb. He knows there's some percentage chance like somebody's actually like gonna deck him, and then how's he gonna respond?
Yeah.
He's not the
Well,
type. Yeah, he's not the type to be like, oh no, you hit me. He's gonna type like, oh, I made fun of this guy and he decked me in a YouTube video.
yeah. He went after that crypto scammer, and they were talking about like some real violent shit, but they were definitely not real. Do you remember that? What was that
I
scam?
remember. I
Bit
don't.
Connect.
Yeah,
Yeah, that Trayvon guy I think was one of the guys he went after. Kind of made fun of. And they were talking about they were making some real like ominous kind of threats, and yeah, I guess if he's undeterred by them, he's probably not worried about
yeah.
this guy who lives across the country fighting him.
Hey, Matt Sue liked the tweet, so he's in the mix.
Yeah.
Um,
Those guys seem like too like those crypto scammers seem like they had a lot less to lose than Berkey. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'd be a lot more like I'd be worried about Berkey actually hitting me, but I would be a lot more terrified about them doing something really bad because Berkey's not trying to ruin his life. He's got a good life.
yeah. Well, we did our two practice hand reviews, and we're gonna do them after I buff up some stuff here. As well received, and we'll try to do a walkthrough of Floptimal in the future. And any new features coming up there?
Uh, New features, maybe. I don't want to get too into that because I don't want to promise something that's not happening super soon. But we're constantly adding new ranges. We just added 100 big blind deep MTT ranges, um, and this wasn't. I guess the newest feature is. It sounds really simple, but it's actually really sweet because it's all the pre-flop ranges. You can now copy paste them out and like just copy paste them right into PO solver. Which if you don't use PO solver, it doesn't sound nearly as exciting as it is, but it's like really, really nice to not have to draw out entire ranges into a solver. Um, but yeah, we're just kind of like trying to add more ranges and different stack sizes and stuff. The next one we're working on is deeper stack cache. That's gonna have, and then we're gonna have deeper stack cache with antes, stuff like that.
That will be
I don't know if we'll
useful.
add a straddle at any given point. Maybe we will at some point because I know there's like some app games that people play that they want a straddle in there.
Yeah, there's like straddles and antes. Like I always like the
Yeah.
three blind structure.
Yeah. It's like I think the one that I remember was like there's like a big blind ante, but then there's a straddle, so it's almost like a half ante.
That's like the
That was
live of
kind
the
of a
mic
weird one.
structure, and then
Oh, there were like double antes too, right? There were like these big ass ante ones.
we're toying with that too, which like the two lowest V pips have to do double big blind ante to like juice up
I
the
like that.
odds.
That's really sweet. That's a great idea, man. I love that.
Yeah, every dealer push, basically the two lowest V pips have to do an extra big blind ante. And in the beginning, like when people tied, we had them all do it, and then they're like, "Nah, man, only one of us is doing it."
Wow, I love that. See,
Next
there's
time, next
There
time you're
needs to
here.
be more things like that implemented because people put these like stupid rules in that don't really help the game out that much. Like, have you ever played with The Rock?
Yeah, like Lyman's PLO game. I mean, Lyman's PLO game now is double board PLO, but he had a rock. Yeah, it's just
I feel
great.
like
It forces people to play out of position. Like,
that's true. I just feel like it actually caused people to be a bit nittier pre-flop. Because often like it's like a button straddle. Like
yeah,
now the straddler has position, and that's not you want the straddler to be out of position, right?
yeah, that's ideal. But the thing is, like, the rock definitely forces action, and also what Lyman doesn't want is people who just like have memorized solutions and are robotic. So when you have a rock, it automatically, screws up the math in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's very fair. But I do think like if I were to try to pick a game that improved the gambling of the game that we're playing, I would take what you just told me with making the two lowest VPIPs pay more way above the rock. Like if I were to rank like games that are better for the game, like your game would be towards the top and the rock would be way at the bottom,
Well, the rock was
essentially.
especially for PLO. So because PLO, some people when they get tilted and many four card combinations look better than they actually are.
Yeah. That's kind of what I love about PLO too, by the way, is like when you're stuck, you can get it back. Like if you're stuck a bunch in a no limit game, like you're probably not going to see that money that night, right? But you can
Yeah,
at least gamble it up and try to get it back in PLO.
it's fair. Yeah.
Like you're not going to get completely torched always trying to win it back. Will it go wrong some nights? Yeah, for sure.
Is there any other drama we haven't covered, or is this
Man,
all summarized,
I feel like any other drama just gets like
buried, like
yeah.
like Jamie LaFay? I don't even know what's going on. I just like hear some people calling her a scammer. Other people was like, "How could she be a scammer?" Blah blah blah. It's like,
Oh yeah, I haven't even tried to dig into that. That seems like way too much to read through. Um I have some friends who have strong opinions on it, but I'm not trying to get in there.
sure, yeah. I just like, I was encouraged to invite her on live at the bike, and just like it was an option, but I'm just like so swamped. And then all of the other stuff came out. I'm just like, I don't even know what's true or not. So if I don't know, I better just play it safe.
Wait, did she play on your stream?
No, she played on Hustler, I think at least once,
Okay.
and yeah, just like nobody. I don't know. I can't determine what's going on, and just like, the grand scheme of things, it's tough to move ahead in the queue when we have so many things going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That was like the Berkey drama to me is like fun. There's there's a lot of like characters in it.
Yeah, I
And there's
definitely feel bad for him because it's like, you know,
oh
it's a
yeah,
lot of
sorry, I don't
heat.
mean fun I'm certainly not laughing at Berkey. I just meant it's fun like for instance that text back and forth. Like even Berkey's clearly being a little playful with it, right? Like
Sure.
he's like enjoying that back and forth to some extent. The LaFay stuff was just like it just seemed
Serious.
really serious and sad and just like very there was no silver lining to that one. Nobody in that seemed very happy to be in there. Nick looks like he's loving this.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he looks like he's very happy to be there.
Well, that's what I got for today. Do you have any subject matters or?
Oh man. I don't know. What are you guys running for games next week? You got any big ones?
Trying to run bigger, like 51 for Thursday and Friday. I'll try to. I mean, this week's screwed up hard because like I was trying to get a big 2-4 game on Tuesday and just fell apart the morning of and just exhausted me. So,
Yeah.
it's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, so yeah, I got a few days to figure it out. But, um, what if seat open? You want in?
I'll come out. But I was just talking it up because I watched live at the bike and I was interested.
Thank you very much. I think
Yeah.
G-Man might be
But you know me,
listening.
I'll always be out there.
Think
If you need.
think Garrett might be listening. He liked the tweet. He liked the stream.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, he knows I'm in his corner character wise and just like some stuff, especially if there's, you know, no proof, it's pretty hard to conclude one way or another.
Garrett definitely was one of the people in cash because I watched a lot of tournaments probably because um, tournaments are nice for me to watch because it's people I play with. So I'm like, it's almost like I'm doing a little bit of work
Work, right? Yeah.
while enjoying it.
Yeah.
But Garrett was one of the first people who got me to watch more cash for sure. I also read Mark Manson because of Garrett's podcast. So he
Oh,
definitely influenced me a lot in the past.
there were so many people when Garrett played on stream. I don't want to say their names. They're like good friends of mine. They're like they wanted to see Garrett's whole cards so bad because like they played with him at Commerce like day
Oh,
in and day
interesting.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is like, I think regardless, Garrett's gonna have a legacy in poker. He's at minimum generational talent, and I think we know how it is. Like nobody knows what's gonna happen. Like maybe in 10 years when his family's like grown up, he may just look at the younglings and be like, "These guys aren't that good. Let's battle." It's
Yeah.
done it before.
The beautiful thing about poker, or one of the beautiful things, is that you can run all the sims that you want, right? But the way that sims work right now, especially post flop, is that if you're gonna have these multi-way pots, um, if you run a sim assuming certain people are doing certain things at certain frequencies, and they're not doing those things, then the output that you're gonna get is not gonna be very good, right? Like it's not going to work versus them doing other stuff. It'll come up with strategies that are, tough to lose too much with, but especially when you get multi-way, it gets very complicated very quickly. Like for instance, if you think somebody's range is X pre-flop, and so you run a sim about the flop, your flop play, and then it turns out that their range is very different.
Yeah.
You're gonna have an okay strategy against the wrong range, but it's not gonna be super accurate, right? And then when you get multi-way, that's even worse. So like that was a very convoluted way of saying when you get a bunch of recreational players that do not play typical poker or like GTO poker,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a hard time if you just like try to study sims. You're gonna have a hard time outplaying a guy like Garrett who thinks on the fly really well and has 15, 20 years. So like, in 10 years, you're going to have guys who are technically way better than Garrett. I mean, if there aren't already guys like that, but like in a lineup of mostly Rex or not even Rex, but just like guys who play really out of the line or out of the box or whatever. I'm going to take Garrett in that lineup for many years to come.
It's not
Until
only
like,
that, like, I was talking with Matt Sue, who presumably is listening to this too, and he says there's a lot of successful people that players, I used to be one of them, that didn't account for live tells. And I think as time passes by, even though there's no hard documentation, which, when we do the hand reviews and I do it with other people, like, I'm going to start pointing that stuff out. Because, like, it was scary that watching myself on camera, I was like, oh my God, I have tells. But the thing is, I realized
yeah,
I'm the only one who knows what I'm thinking. So if you don't put two and two together with like the tells and what the person's thinking, because there's like involuntary reactions and there's
hmm
stuff that you can mask, but that like you can spot the involuntary reactions. It's super powerful.
yeah, it's almost like you're always going to find the best tells you're going to find are the ones that you either do or used to do.
Yeah.
Because that's how you figured out that they exist, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Just
Pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the stuff that's just like, and like people that you can misinterpret how people interpret like your physical ones too. That's why like while reverse tells do exist, it's like I've tried to do them and then my opponent interprets it in a different way and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much
Just
there's so many weird things with that for sure. One of my favorite poker stories is do you know the Steinbergs?
which one? Max
Uh,
Steinberg?
yeah,
Or
Max and Danny.
I know
Uh,
of Max because I
okay,
see his
so
tweets, yeah.
yeah, he does DFS now, almost exclusively. He'll play a poker tournament every now and then. He's a good friend of mine. Um, so they're twins. And several years ago, he's playing in a tournament with some guy. And he plays a pot with this kid, and he like overbet jams the river in kind of a weird spot where there's not that many overbet jams. And the guy tanks for like 2 minutes, and then he or 3 minutes, and he's like, he goes, "It's pretty sick because you ran an overbet jam versus me." He's like a year ago or like a half a year ago or something. He was like, and you showed me the bluff. He's like, and I had long hair then, and now I don't. And he's like, and I'm pretty sure that
It's
you
awesome.
don't recognize me because you haven't said hi or anything. He's like, but if you knew who I was, I know you're not going to bluff me the same way again. He's like, but I don't think you know who I am, so I think you're bluffing here a lot. So he just ends up calling right after this whole speech, and Max is just like turns over the nuts and goes, "Yeah, that you were probably playing with my twin brother Danny." And it was like all this thought went into it, and it just turns out it was the wrong guy.
Yeah.
It's
It's
so sick.
like Bryce Yockey has so many live at the bike hands where it just like he just the it's on camera so it looks like it was like super thought out genius. And then when I asked him, he's like, "No, man, I just you know did it."
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
were. Oh, I love that. You were saying that last time. It's so funny because everyone wants to take credit for like the genius thing that the other person thought, right? And
yeah. It's like,
Bryce is a great dude.
yeah, he's super good. I literally saw him 2 days ago. It's just hilarious. He's like, "No, I just did it." Like I don't know.
Yeah. Bryce, the first time I met Bryce, we are in Australia, and we were like hanging out at the Crown Casino, and we wanted to play open face. He's like, "Oh, I'm pretty good at open face,"
He
and we're
is.
like, "All right, well then we shouldn't play for too high a stakes." He's like, "No, no, we'll play for like $1 or two." We were like hanging out outside. He's like, "We'll play for like $1 or two, and I'll teach you guys like how to play better." And then like I see him at the series, and he's playing huge stakes, and like I talked to a couple
Yeah.
people, and he's like top like three in the world at open face, and he
Yeah.
was just giving us. He was just giving us
Lessons.
lessons for
Yeah.
$1 a point for the like. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Good guy, Bryce.
Yeah. He's like yeah, he's one of the guys that like he'll just stroll and he's like, "Is your seat open?" I'm like, "Hey, Bryce, you're just legacied in. Just take his."
Yeah, he's
I mean, it's true. He's old school live at the bike too, and he's definitely been around. And I'd rather like people who've been around have a chance or the seat. It's just like there's a bunch of new school people that like want
yeah.
seats. I'm just like, man, like wait in line. it's
Yeah,
more
exactly.
it's more just like from the outside I get it. It's just like people are salivating at these lineups and just like, dude, these guys just want to have fun. They're not like, plus if you sit down there's a high chance they're gonna knit it up too because they don't like you and they don't like playing
Yeah, true.
so it's just like there's so
Yeah.
many cascading effects for these like stream games like
I didn't even
yes.
think about that aspect of it. Like people actually play less fun to watch because the player's there.
Yeah, it just like
I didn't even consider that.
even in the public games, like the more Euros that are out there, it's just like, dude, this is like not fun. Like, I'm looking at somebody 10 times worse than me, like 15 years ago when I was like super serious.
Yeah.
It's just like poker was meant to be a social game, and yeah, it just like things can, that in a way, it's almost a social experiment that failed.
Hmm.
So it's like it was meant to be like an intellectual curiosity of, oh, what do I think that different strategies. Now is just like, no, man, it's all about the cards and how deep you go in the rabbit hole. and then the adjustment. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little sad that way. Man, yeah, we could talk about this for another hour, but there were such great characters in poker when I started watching it.
yeah, and that's it's to be fair to Nick Airball, like he's kind of grasping that. And
Yeah. He's done a good job at that. You and I were talking about a guy who's been killed. Oh, what's his name? Owns all the casinos.
person,
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 man,
yeah,
he is crushing that too.
yeah.
He's very entertaining. Yeah, some people have that for sure. I'm gonna show up. Next time I come out and play, man, I'm gonna come out full wrestler style.
Do it.
I'm gonna put on a cape and I'm gonna talk a lot of shit.
Start shit with jungle.
Maybe I should. That was Nick Airball's finest moment. Do you see where you got Jungle to knock his
Dock over
stack
ships
over?
over. Yeah.
That was pretty good. Poker beef is weird. Like a week later, they're just like big upping each other on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't
I thought
know.
Jungle was legitimately pissed.
Does what?
What's that?
What'd you say?
I said poker beef is weird. Like a week later, they're just like big upping each other on Twitter.
Yeah, it just depends where the money flows. The
Yeah,
winner of the money's got to potentially has to entertain the loser a little bit, and then
sure.
on to the next one.
Yeah, fair. But that
Okay.
was yeah, that was a pretty funny moment. I'm a huge Jungle fan.
Me
I
too.
used to I used to when I was like on tilt from poker, I would go home after like busting out a tournament and I would put on these Jungle Man tilt compilation videos where it's just Jungle Man being mad at the poker table for like 15 minutes and they would just always make me calm down and they're just so enjoy. He's just such a funny human.
I like the one who's with Antonio. I think he's like, Jungle, what happened? He's like, I bet, and you had the straight again. See?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like so flustered he can't get the sentence out. He's so good. Oh my God.
Man.
Jungle's something else. I know the guy who he came up with in poker and they used to play 1-2 live together. And he told me about the first time Jungle ever bluffed. He's like, this guy hasn't bluffed ever in like the 3 months we played together. And we get to the river. He's like, and Jungle looks at his hand, looks at the board, looks at his hand, and then it's like a light bulb went off. And then he goes, I'm all in. He's like, and I'm in this weird spot because I'm like, I feel like based on what he just did, he's bluffing, but like he's literally never bluffed like in 3 months. He's like, so I folded, and he just stands up and he throws his cards on the table and he screams at the top of his lungs, like, I had nothing. I was like, that's, and then he became a crusher after he learned how to bluff.
Just don't bluff into a straight.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Oh, man. All right.
Okay, well, it's been a while. This is a pretty long one, but we did have a lot to cover, and we want to leave this up while it's hot, and hopefully people come in. But
Oh,
we'll be the
yeah.
real hashtag positivity, not the fake positivity.
What's that?
We'll be the real hashtag positivity. We don't want people to get hurt, but if people are gonna get hurt, they're gonna get hurt.
Yeah. We're stealing the phrase. I think in the future we can if we put the list of what we're covering on there, we could do like
Yeah,
sort of around the horns thing where we give ourselves like a time constraint for each one.
I'll start
And that
doing
way
that.
we
Yeah, we
what's
got
that?
we got some improvements to make, but we're well received so far. So far so good. Plus, we got hit by the straight bullets. We weren't supposed to be involved. Somehow we got dragged into this.
Yeah, it's true. Man can only defend himself, right?
Yeah. All right, we'll check in. I'll check in next week, but either the case, we'll get you in some games, and we'll see how Floptimal interprets certain situations.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
This is Jesse Sylvia of Floptimal, friends with Russell Thomas. I don't know if I'm allowed to be a friend anymore. 'Cause I gotta take Kitty's side.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you got to watch what you say.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. Cyrus is like, Wayne, can you tell us about getting buried? Yeah, I could tell plenty about that. Um, all right, this is Jesse Sylvia, runner-up of 2012 World Series. Must be nice.
Pretty nice.
Shout out to Ashley. Watch her vlogs. Check him out. All right.
Ashley Sleeth, YouTube. Boom.
All right.
There we go.
Good night, everybody.